Your Honors, this case number 230 on the calendar. Bear with me. In the matter of Greco-Reese versus Haspatka.
Who's Haspatka?
Me.
Good, go.
Heinlein, Hamilton, and Archulewski. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
You see, when you're in charge, you could take certain license. So let me show you what I'm going to do. That's
Okay.
Mr. A, B, C, and D.
I wish I could have done that.
Where is your rental property?
I'm sorry, Omaha, Nebraska.
And you rent this house to college students.
Well, I just rent it. It just happens to be college students that always.
You've rented to college students
Well,
before,
yeah.
so you rent to college students.
Yeah.
You have any dislike for this property? You hate this property?
This is the first time I've ever had any trouble.
Did you always rent to girls in the past?
No.
You rented to boys?
Mm-hmm.
Never had any trouble?
No.
Miraculous. How big is this house that you rented, Mr. A?
It's a split entry, 4-bedroom. I don't know the square footage.
And what was the rent on the house?
I believe it was $950, split 4 ways.
And when did you start your lease?
August 1st, 2003.
Name of the university you attended?
University of Nebraska at Omaha.
What year are you in?
4th year, senior.
Senior as well. Senior. Senior.
Raise your hand if you're a good golfer.
Is that anybody in here?
No, just you. All right, Ms. Reese, this is the situation. According to your complaint, these 4 young slobs destroyed your house, and in addition to leaving the place a mess, they decided to play golf off the roof of your house at some point and cause substantial damage to your roof.
Yes, ma'am.
So you want them to pay for the repairs.
Yes.
The boys say they didn't have a chance to clean up because you changed the locks on the house, which must have been the month of July, right?
Correct. End of July. Yeah.
End of July.
End of mid-July, right?
But, yeah.
Well, end of mid-July.
End to mid-July.
I don't remember the exact date. Sometime after the 20th of July.
So the end of July, she changed the locks.
Yes.
Why do you think she changed the locks, gentlemen?
I don't know. She claims that we abandoned the house, but we did not. We still had property in there.
Did you pay July's rent?
No.
Well, just a minute. Mr. D says yes. You say no. Mr. D, did you pay July's rent?
The security deposit, she took that as last month's rent, is what she told us. She said we didn't have to pay last month's rent, she would keep the security deposit.
Why would anybody in their right mind say that until they inspected the house?
Good question.
No,
Who did
no
she
idea.
say that to?
On the phone. On July 19th, the day rent was due.
July 19th. And what did you say?
She called me. I was in bed. She woke me up, and she said she was talking about rent due today, and I said, yeah, I know. I'm going to bring it down later. And she said, but if you guys, don't pay it, I'll just keep the security deposit as last month's rent.
Is that what you told him?
No, ma'am. There was so much damage in the house that I could have used another 2 months' rent to fix what I fixed in that house.
Listen, Mr. A, maybe it's just that you were groggy. Because what you just told me was that you said to your landlord, I'm going to bring the rent down later on today, and she said, nah, forget it.
She didn't say, nah, forget it. But she left me with the understanding that
Oh, well, that's different.
If we did not
Listen,
pay last month's rent, I don't remember exact words, I'm sorry, this was a long time ago. I was under the understanding when I hung up the phone that if we decided that we didn't want to pay last month's rent, she would keep the security deposit.
Well, maybe you said to her, maybe since you don't remember the exact words, and maybe the impression was left with you because you said to her, I'm not giving you the last month's rent, keep the security deposit. Because then, that was on the 19th, sir?
Yes.
When did she change the locks on the house?
Like I said, sometime after the 20th. It was
Well,
about,
that would have been,
about
listen to me,
okay.
listen to me, that would have been the very next day. So that makes sense to me. What makes sense to me is she called you and said, where's the rent? And you said, you're not getting the rent. You keep the security deposit. And then she says, oh, yeah, I'm changing the locks on the house. That makes sense. Not, don't come down and pay me the rent. I'll keep the security deposit for the last month. And then she goes in and changes the locks. That doesn't make sense. Okay, now, what I would like to see from you is photographs of the house if you have it.
Got those here.
And After I look at the photographs of the house, I would like to hear from your witness, if any. I assume that this is your witness, who's going to tell me something about these golf balls being hit off the roof, which A, B, and C deny. And D. Forgot about you. Sorry. Well, something's going on up there. Do you have major hailstorms?
No.
Nebraska?
Not that year.
Yes,
Huh?
yes, we did.
Major
Not
hailstorms?
that time.
You're
No.
kidding me.
It was probably the worst year for hail we've had in quite a while, actually.
Really? And you think that the hailstorms did this damage to the roof?
I don't know what the damage looks like, but
Well, I'm going to show it to you. You can bring this over and share it with A through D.
Pass them down, boys.
Your Honor.
I assume since you didn't see the damage and you don't know anything about the
I
damage.
do know one thing.
Yes.
I found out today that they had a fifth person living in my house because the man that came to help
Mr.
the last D,
Mr.
to
D.
help D
Perfect.
move out, was the one that told my new renters what they did, and they started it July
Just a second.
4th.
Just a second. You're the new renter?
That's correct.
Tell me your name.
Robert Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, when did you meet these gentlemen, if at all?
I believe it was either the 25th or shortly after the 25th of July.
And where did you meet them?
At the home.
What were they doing there?
They were removing their belongings.
Did you have a conversation with any of these gentlemen?
Yes, I had a conversation with a close friend of the defendants. He said to me,
Just a second. What was his name?
you know, I don't recall at this time. I'm kind of flustered with names. I don't recall names very well. I'm more of a face person.
I can't take your testimony. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
This is a court. Court, we take evidence, Miss Reese. If this young man had had a conversation with one of these defendants, then certainly he could have testified if any of them made an admission to him. But you want me to take his testimony that somebody whose name he doesn't know, who's not present today, and that's hearsay, okay, to support your case. So I can't do that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Joe Reese says her former tenants, Joel Hospodka, Ronald Heinlein II, Adam Hamilton, and J.J. Archewski, were damage to her rental property. Gail says the house looked like it had never been cleaned.
Okay. Do you have any photographs of the interior of the house, Miss Reese?
Your Honor, I lost, well, I didn't lose them, my sister-in-law did. I have the letter I sent them with all the things that were wrong
Can I
with the
see?
house. It was the abandonment letter that my attorney told me to write to them.
Whose job was it to clean the bathroom?
kind of a joint effort.
Well, nobody, I
Four
see
roommates.
nobody raised their hand.
It was
Okay. Who cleaned the bathrooms?
usually probably me.
That would be... Because it says here, the bathrooms, and in big letters it says the bathrooms were disgusting. It appears as if it has never been cleaned. Well, based upon the lack of showing of hands, I would say that that's probably true. It's too late. Too late. Holes in the walls in the master bedroom, broken window, broken door frame. Who had the dog? Raise your hand.
We had-
Dog! Mr. D, Mr. A. What kind of dog did you have?
We had 3 chihuahuas.
Whose job was it to pick up the poop in the house from the dogs?
Whoever's dog it
Whatever.
was.
Everybody pretty much.
And who did it?
We all did.
We all did.
Oh, there was some you missed.
Small dog.
Small dog. It's disgusting. You know, but you know.
Your Honor, can I
I've had
say-
5 children who all went to college and who all, at one time or another, lived in rental property. And I remember I used to check to see if my inoculations were in order before I went to visit them. And if they would ever ask me, would you like to go visit my friend's house, I would say, no, thank you. They can join us for breakfast at McDonald's. Because I don't go to anybody else's mess. Bad enough I have to go and look at your mess.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that you've been very fortunate if you haven't had
Oh,
a
I have
mess.
been. This
like
is the
they
first time
left you
I've
with.
had it this
Now,
bad.
I'm not even addressing the golf balls over here because you don't have any proof of that. You don't have any confessions and you don't have any witnesses who saw them hitting golf balls off the roof. And I'm not going to get any admissions from these guys because nobody even wants to admit who did the bathroom. Aside from the roof, let me see estimates of the damage to the house.
I didn't have them because I just wrote everything down when I sent them in that abandonment letter.
Yeah, well, that's not
And
good
at
enough.
the time of the lease, when they signed the lease, they asked if they could have one dog.
I don't care whether they have one dog, they can have one dog, they have 20 dogs. They got to clean up the dog's poop and not leave it in the closet. Listen, they did not pay the last month's rent, and they were there after the 18th of July. Therefore, they owe you the entire month's rent. That's $950. And based upon what I see in your abandonment letter and what they concede about the condition of the house, that they had 2 dogs, I mean, that's not something that you guess at. You guessed that they had 2 dogs. You found remnants of the dogs there. I can guarantee you that it cost $900 to fix up the mess that you left in the house. So you owe her $950 for rent, and you owe her $950 for cleanup. Well, you've already paid her $950 because that used your security deposit. So, gentlemen, you owe the plaintiff $950. Divvy it up. That's it. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
One of their friends told one of my new renters why the roof was damaged.
Everything on the roof is baloney, if you ask me. We never went on the roof. I don't know where she got that from.
I changed the locks and told them they had to call me when they were ready to get their stuff, that they were not going into the house.
There was stuff that we damaged. She didn't have a chance for us to fix it. I mean, she just changed the locks.
They're seniors in college. I hate to see what they did in high school.
We're 4 college guys. Obviously, there's going to be damages done to the house.
I feel sorry for the ladies that marry him.
In my opinion, she's a pathological liar, and now I understand why she's single.
Larry Lane is suing his ex-tenant, collections agent Kay Thomas, for unpaid rent, stolen property, and legal fees. Larry says Kay and her family are professional squatters.
Now this is case number 419 on the calendar, the matter of Lane versus Thomas. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Lane, Ms. Thomas was a tenant of yours,
Yes, that's correct.
and it is your claim that she owes you for rent certain property that she took from the apartment or house that she had rented when she ultimately moved out, and that she also owes you for filing false charges against you in her application for a protective order. You claim that Ms. Thomas and her family are professional squatters,
Yes, I do.
which means that they go into people's homes, they rent them, they pay rent for a while, and they stop paying. And since it takes very often 6 months to a year to get them out, they don't pay rent, and they go from place to place, and that's a scam.
It is a scam.
And you're prepared to demonstrate to me that Ms. Thomas and her family have a history of doing the same kind of thing to other landlords.
Yes, I do.
And I'd be interested to hear about that. In any event, when did you rent? Is it an apartment or a house?
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, upper middle income with a
When?
pool. February, I rented her the home. She signed a lease on February 27th.
Of
She moved in
2004?
on 2004. She moved in on March 15th, 2004.
Who moved in?
Valina Thomas, and the premises were leased to her and her daughter. In addition to her moving in, she moved her brother in.
No, just a second. Who signed the lease?
Valina Thomas and Thomas.
Is that your husband? Yes, ma'am. How much was the rent, Mr. Lane?
I asked for first, last, and the security
How-
deposit, $1,250, Your Honor. $1,250.
I'm going to ask the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to give me the answers. If I need for you to expand, you're going to do that
Thank you.
for me. $1,250 a month.
$1,250 a month.
And they gave you first, last, and security.
That's correct.
Okay, so they paid for March, and it was a year lease?
The check for March, Your Honor, was
No, was it a
dishonored.
year lease?
It is a year lease, yes, Your Honor.
The check for March was what, sir?
The check for March was dishonored by the bank. She alleged that her girlfriend had given her a $569 check.
Okay, so the
But
check for March was bounced.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did she ever pay March rent?
She did, Your Honor.
Okay, when did she pay March rent?
She paid March rent prior to April 15th.
And she paid April's rent?
She did pay April's rent, Your Honor.
And what about May?
She did not pay May's, June's, or July's.
Shh. Did she and her husband and the rest of the people that she moved into the house, did they live there May, June, and July?
Yes, they did, Your Honor. They lived there through August.
Through August?
Well, actually, they had abandoned the property, and I lived out of state, and I repossessed the property with a writ of possession on July 29th.
I just want to know,
Yes, ma'am.
when was the last time they lived in the house?
I wouldn't know. I didn't come back to the property until August the 7th.
Okay, when was the last time you lived in the house, Miss Thomas?
July 31st.
Fine. Can I see your rent receipt from May?
Did not pay the rent from May till June.
Why?
Not.
You lived there in May.
Yes, ma'am. The rent was due on the 15th of every month.
Right.
I paid April's rent from April 15th to May 15th.
Right.
We notified Mr. Lane that my husband's job was transferring him. First, we notified Mr. Brown when we paid April's rent that my husband's job was transferring him to Sarasota, Florida, which is 2 hours away from where we were living. He said, just let me know the date when you're going to be moving. Told Mr. Lane called. He said, I'll tell you what. He says, you paid half of May's rent, and I will return your security deposit if you're out before June the 15th. However, when I asked for a letter stating the fact, everything changed. He sent me a 3-day notice to vacate. Then he sent me another 3-day notice from a realtor company.
So what?
A month later.
So what? Months later, you were supposed to be out. Why weren't you out in June?
Because he didn't follow his agreement either.
Why weren't you out in June?
Because our house wasn't ready that we were moving to. And
then why didn't you pay rent?
We told him we were moving. And he said that...
Just a second, I don't understand something. Just a minute. Miss Thomas, if what you're telling me is that you moved and that's why you didn't pay rent, that's fine. What you're telling me now is that you told him you were moving, but you didn't move because your house wasn't ready and you didn't pay rent. Just a second.
Okay.
Let's get to objective facts.
Okay.
Miss Thomas.
Okay.
Who is this?
This is my daughter, Heather.
All right. Is she a witness?
Yes, she is.
Fine. Then, unfortunately, she has to stay here.
That's fine.
If you live in an apartment or a house that doesn't belong to you, pursuant to a lease, if you live there, you have to pay rent.
I agree.
I don't want to hear any baloney about why you didn't pay rent.
I never said I didn't know it. I owe him for May and June.
Oh, well, that's not what you're saying here.
I have it.
Just a second. I don't see in here that that's what you say, that you owe him for May and June. Let me see. In June, we could no longer afford the premises. That's what you wrote in your answer. That's what you swore to. Mm-hmm. And also, we found out that my husband was being transferred in the latter part of July.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that have to do with May and... Stop playing with your papers. So that has nothing to do with May and June's rent.
I agree. I mean, we owe May. We owe May and June.
Let's move on. We informed the plaintiff that we would be moving, and Mr. Lane was not very happy. He said that if we paid half of May's rent, he would refund our deposit when we moved. However, the money we had given him when we moved in was enough to cover up our rent until July, so we weren't going to pay him anymore. You got a whole bunch of excuses here, and you can't seem to keep your story straight. You lived there in May, you lived there in June, you lived there in July, and you didn't pay rent. Nowhere in your answer do you say, well, I do owe him for May and June.
I've always said I owed him, even in the court doc.
Would you do me a favor, please, Byrd? Would you show this answer, this sworn answer that she signed to her, and ask her, maybe I missed it, you know, I don't know how I scored in reading. Show me in your answer where you say you acknowledge that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
I never acknowledged that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Until now. Oh, fine. Fine, then we get it now. Now you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Well, I also acknowledged when we went to Brevard County Courthouse that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Just a second. I'm not talking about any place else that you went when he tried to get you evicted. I'm talking about the small claims court, which is where you are. So you forgot to put that down in your answer that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Okay.
Is that right? You forgot.
Yes,
fine. You owe him for 2 months' rent.
Yes,
so your rent was $1,250 times 2 is $2,500. So that you owe him. That you acknowledge you owe him. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Says ex-tenant Kay Thomas owes for 3 months' rent. Larry says Kay is a squatter.
Now, when did you start eviction proceedings against her?
I attempted to start eviction proceedings in May.
So you already knew that this was a lost cause with these people?
I didn't believe it was a lost cause, Your Honor.
Well, then why would you choose to evict them?
I put a 3-day notice on her door precautionarily.
Sir, they owe you $2,500 for the 2 months' rent.
What about July, Your Honor?
Shh. Just a minute.
Okay.
Now, did you get first month's rent and last month's rent?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Listen to me. The last month's rent would have been July. Is that right, Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the security deposit?
Well, Your Honor, there was extensive damage to my home and legal fees.
How much were your legal fees?
$691.
Okay. And what kind of damage was done to the home?
Well, Your Honor, the screens on all windows were damaged. All the blinds were damaged.
Do you have any photographs?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
I'd like to see them, please.
I also have receipts for blinds.
How did these windows get broken?
Can I see those pictures? I haven't seen them.
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have pictures also of the day before we moved in and the day we moved out. Would you like to see those?
I would.
These are the two screens that he's claiming on the kitchen. That's the 31st. You can see that those are not broke. Living room blind, kitchen, and the other one that we admitted to. These are the two that we admitted to as far as the blinds go. The dates are on them, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so I have broken blinds.
And can I clarify something really quick? He said that me and my husband and my daughter moved into the house. I have two daughters, and he met them both. He also came 2 days before he left for Bay City, Michigan. He came to my house, my last residency, unannounced, but he came.
You mean the new place?
The old place. Prior to moving to his residency, I lived in Cocoa Beach, and he came to my residency 2 days before I signed the lease with him.
Yeah.
He's talking about me moving my brother and my sister-in-law in. He met them. He knew them. He knew they were going to be staying there with us for a month or so till they found their own place.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
Defendant acknowledges at this juncture that she owes you 2 months' rent. I would take that and be happy.
What about the furniture she stole?
Now let's get to the furniture.
All right.
Show me pictures of the furniture.
I can't. I can only show you receipts, Your Honor, because I'm
What
kind of
furniture
photographed.
did you take, Miss Thomas? You indicate that you took some stuff from the house.
I didn't take anything. I sold it.
You sold it?
Yes, ma'am. I have receipts to that, where I sold it to and how much I sold it for.
Let me see.
The last 2 pages.
Miss Thomas, why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
I sold the dining room set and the bedroom set.
Why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
We had an agreement in the lease for me to purchase it.
You mean you purchased it? Did you purchase it?
No, we did not pay it in full. No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. So you had a provision in the lease if you wanted to purchase it, but you didn't purchase it, and yet you sold it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you can't do that.
I understand that. I did it out of anger because of what he done. He tried to have my electricity cut off.
Your Honor, I have a subpoena from Florida Power and Light showing that I didn't turn her power off.
You tried.
But not only had she given them a false security number to get her power, she bounced checks on them, and that the power was turned off. And here it is, Your Honor,
Can I see it, please?
along with the subpoena.
Fine.
She also gave them a false address where she was moving to send the final bill. I corrected it for Florida Power and Light so they can collect from this deadbeat.
Shh. You owe money?
Yes, I'm paying them $75 a month. Yes, ma'am.
For money that you owe them?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you gotta pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your water, they turn off your electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills. Listen, you can't sell property that doesn't belong to you.
That.
You didn't pay your electric bill. That's why you're paying $75 to make up what you owe them.
Your Honor, her lights were turned off June 26th. Okay.
Not interested in that. How much is this stuff worth, sir? Dining room table with a hutch, a wicker bedroom set,
King-size bed,
king-size bed.
armoire.
How much did she agree to pay in the lease for the things that she sold?
She was going to pay $50 a month, but never consummated that.
No. Mr. Lane.
She was going to pay $50 a month and the balance on conclusion of the lease.
Okay,
The lease agreement shows
$50
that.
a month
Paragraph 22,
times
page
12 is $600.
Yes, Your Honor.
And a balance upon the termination of the lease. What was the furniture sold for, Mr.
The
Lane?
furniture was sold for $1,250
$1,250 in total.
total.
Is
Yes,
that right?
Your Honor. Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Then that's what you owe him.
I understand that. Never said I didn't owe him for it.
Yes, you did. Show her the answer. She said the stuff he left in the house was a bunch of junk.
I was referring to
Just a second.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Show me in here where
It's
you
not in that
acknowledge
one.
that you owe him money for the furniture that you sold.
It's not in there, ma'am.
Right. It's not in there.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like you to give me whatever proof you have that the Thomas family are squatters and scammers.
Please.
So far, I would tend to agree with you.
Your Honor, I did a background investigation, and I should have done this prior to it, but my grandson was in a hospital. This shows that she was evicted. This is a background investigation from the internet that shows 6 bad checks and cable fraud.
Anything else?
Yes, I do. She currently is in Bradenton, Florida, in a diversion program for first-time offenders for bad checks. And I don't know about anything else, Your Honor. I just knew
Is that all
this...
correct? Are you
The bad
currently-
checks, yeah, a bad check, yes, ma'am. It was the first time offender where I wrote a bad check, yes, ma'am.
It was the first time you got caught.
No, no,
It was the first time you got caught.
Your Honor, this account...
I don't understand you, Miss Thomas. I don't understand why you believe. How old are you?
19.
Ma'am.
Well, you know, she's not a baby, so she can be here.
Your Honor,
Listen.
this account was written on a closed account, which she alleged somebody had given her a check.
You already gave him a bad check.
May I
for
see
March.
that
Closed
account?
account.
May I see that account, please? Yes, ma'am. And I took care of it. As soon as he told me that it had not been paid, I gave him the money. Care of it.
Okay.
Took it out of the
Can I
account.
see it?
So
Your
it
Honor,
wasn't
she
that
told
he...
me that the check had bounced and yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lane,
Yes,
how long
ma'am.
have you been a landlord?
This was the first time I rented a piece of property, and I must have had stupid written right across my forehead.
That's true.
I understand. Your Honor, I have one other thing I'd like to say briefly.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, there was property in my garage, and when I reported my furniture missing to the police, they said it was a civil matter. They couldn't do anything. But the property that I had in my garage was a side-by-side refrigerator, a Craftsman lawnmower, and a power edger. She disposed of that equipment. I went back down to the police department. They sent me out to her house to inspect again to see if the property was moved indoors or in the backyard. And as I tried to go in, she had me arrested for battery.
He was not arrested, Your Honor. He was never charged.
She
I
filed
have,
charges.
I have police reports.
Did you get your refrigerator back?
No. And
you
the other
get your-
landlord,
You didn't get it back. Did you get anything back that was in the garage?
no, I didn't get anything back.
Where's
Not
the
even
stuff?
the keys to the house.
Where's the stuff? I'm not talking about the keys. Where's the stuff?
Can I explain what led up to that?
I just asked you where the stuff is.
It's gone.
It is
Mr.
gone.
Brown.
It went to the refrigerator ferry. Where did it go?
We got the junk guy got it because it was no good. The gasket on it was broke. It wasn't keeping the air in. It was leaking water. He left it. He did not want it.
Just a second. When did you get rid of it?
July the 8th.
Well, if it was bothering you, why didn't you get rid of it when you first moved in? Instead
We
of
were in
July
the
8th?
we were in the process of cleaning out the house, getting everything done. We had talked to Mr. Brown. He said it was given to you, whatever. Mr. Lane didn't want it. Do whatever you wanted to do with it.
Did you say that to her?
No, ma'am.
We
Of
even
course
cleaned
not.
it out.
Of course not. Well,
Your Honor.
what you're supposed to do is,
also-
I'm speaking.
Yes,
What you're
ma'am.
supposed to do is stop making excuses.
I'm not making excuses.
Well,
Your
you
Honor.
did. You made excuses. You made excuses to
But
me.
he's saying I destroyed his house. He inspected the house on
I'm
July
not
the 21st.
talking about the inspection of the house. I'm talking about several things. I'm talking about the rent that you owed him
I agree.
for $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the furniture that you agreed to buy, which you didn't buy, which you sold.
Yes, ma'am.
So you owe him $1,250. I'm talking about the merchandise that was in the garage that you disposed of the same month that you moved out. The same month that you moved out. You didn't say to me, listen, he had all this junk in the garage and I was paying for the garage, so when we moved in, I got some junk guy to come over and get rid of it. You disposed of it the same month that you were moving. Ms. Thomas, you did the wrong thing. And what you're supposed to do, put that down. What you're supposed to do when you do the wrong thing, especially if you have a child here, is you're supposed to say, I did the wrong thing.
I did. I meant I did that.
Well, you didn't admit it to me in the answer. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Goodbye.
Parties are to minutes about.
The previous two landlords, she also squatted on them and sold their property, including a refrigerator as well. I would advise any landlord to look at property research records and make sure that they're talking to the exact reference, because she gave me false references in this case. I started to walk into the house to inspect it. She went like this in the doorway. My belly touched her belly, and next thing I know, I've got a officer wanting to arrest me for assault. If you're going to be a landlord and if you haven't done it before, hire a property management firm. I am not a property manager. My office manager of the insurance agency is a great office manager, But he's not a property manager either. They know how to evict them, they know how to detect them, and they know how to background check them. I'm glad that I was able to come to Judge Judy because I know she's the only woman in this world that would be able to give these squatters the tongue lashing.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McKnight versus McKnight. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Ashley McKnight is suing her sister, 21-year-old Latoria Tori McKnight, for money loaned to pay her rent. Ashley says Tori was in jail and needed help paying her bills.
What's your first name?
Ashley.
This is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your first name?
Latoria.
According to your complaint, your sister went to jail. And you agreed that while she was in jail, you would take care of the bills and the rent on her apartment with the agreement that she would pay you back when she got out of jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Your sister in her answer says that you and your boyfriend decided to stay in the apartment and you trashed it, so she's not responsible for anything. What did you go to jail for and when?
I was on probation for a misdemeanor for having a traffic ticket and not paying on it. And see, they put you on probation until you pay the traffic ticket off. So I was on probation for that, and I was late paying on my probation fines. And so my probation officer, she took a warrant out on me October the 8th, but I didn't find out. She took the warrant out on me until a week later. So then when I went to jail, I stayed 2 weeks.
Which 2 weeks?
After October the 8th, when I found out I had the warrant, that was a week, and after that week was up, I stayed in jail 2 weeks, and I came home October the 26th.
Now, did you ask your sister to pay your rent?
See, how it went was, when I went to jail that Friday, I thought I was supposed to be staying just a couple of days. Oh, I thought I was supposed to just been staying a couple of days. I thought I was coming home that Monday. But I ended up staying 2 weeks. And so when I called home, I was like, keep my apartment up for me. And she said, we'll do that, we'll do that. So the whole time I'm thinking, my rent paid. You know, when I come home, I have a place to come home to. Well, that Monday, after that 2 weeks, my probation officer, he was like, you just pay a certain amount of money and you can come home. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm happy now. I'm coming home now. You know, I done got all hyped up. I'm telling everybody I'm coming home, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. So I called my aunt, and she paid my probation officer to go ahead and pay my ticket off. That way I can come home. So when I came home, I didn't think she was going to be mad about paying my rent when she stayed there 3 weeks.
Well, just a minute. How could she stay there 3 weeks if you told me you were only in jail for 2 weeks?
I was in jail 2 weeks, but the week that I wasn't at home, I didn't stay there. So
where'd you stay?
I stayed like in hotels. I stayed at my mama's house.
Oh, don't give me baloney.
Your Honor, I stayed at her house 2 weeks. On the 15th, Tori was in jail, and she called me and asked me, could I pay her rent for her? She told me her rent was $230, and I said, pay your rent? She was like, yes. She said, you can stay there as long as you promise me you keep my bills up and pay my rent. So I said, okay. So at the time, she talked to a probation officer, and he said if she come up with like $500 cash, then she'll get out of jail. So when she was calling me that time, I had my cell phone. She was calling me on my cell phone. When she called somebody, called me on three-way, asked me, have I asked this person for some money? Have I asked that person for some money?
You and your boyfriend stayed in her apartment?
Yeah.
Where had you been staying?
Well, I live with my mother.
So you moved out of your mother's house in with your boyfriend into her apartment?
No. No, it's not like we moved in like that. I live with my mother like he lived at his mama's house. But she told me I could stay there at her apartment if I pay all her bills for her. So, I mean...
That's nice. That's not a loan.
No, she told me she would pay me back. She told me her rent was $230. When I talked to her site manager, she told me her rent was $350, and it's a $55 late fee because it was late. So she wanted $405. So then they took out a warrant or something, whatever her site manager did, and I got this paper stating that I had to pay Latoya rent by the 26th, so everything on that premises will be theirs.
I got it. So you paid the $405?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, she came out of jail on October 26th.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the same day you paid the $405?
Yes, ma'am.
And then she told you you had to leave?
Yes, ma'am.
So you left?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if she hadn't paid the $405, you would have owed the $405 plus November's rent.
Yes, ma'am. No, she would have been put out. I'm sorry.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, she only stayed in the apartment 2 weeks. Why should you pay your rent for that 2 weeks?
She stayed in my place 3 weeks. I got carpet damage. All them bills still coming.
Show me. Proof. Proof.
Well, I couldn't counterclaim for it.
Show me proof. Show me pictures.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Show me something.
Y'all don't have anything.
Well, that's what you think you were coming here for today. Your answer said that I'm speaking, that not only did she live there, but she caused all kinds of damage. She trashed your apartment. You came in, the place was a mess, the carpet was stained, the walls were... I said, for that you have proof. You take a picture. Everybody's got a camera. What kind of cameras do you have?
I don't have a camera.
You have a friend who has a camera.
No, I do not.
What's your name?
Charmaine Greer.
How old are you?
22.
You have any children?
2.
How old are they?
1 and 5 months.
Is she your friend?
Mm-hmm.
How many pictures do you have of your children? A whole bunch?
Yes.
Yes, because you have a what?
Camera.
Good. Right. See, instead of asking her to come to court today, you should have asked to borrow her camera. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $405. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
If she feel like I owe my sister, then I owe her, but I don't feel like I owe my sister.
I was trying to help out. I mean, I was going to keep her apartment up and everything going on.
My carpet was dirty and I had trash everywhere.
Yeah, it might have been a trash bag in the kitchen, but I mean, trash do be in the kitchen.
Kim Shipley is suing her ex-boyfriend, nurse Christopher Eccles, for bail money and for damage to her car. Christopher is countersuing, claiming Kim stabbed him.
All rise. This is case number 57 on the calendar in the matter of Shipley versus Eccles. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Ms. Shipley, you and the defendant were in a relationship, and it is your claim that he owes you for bail money. And then some time ago, he damaged your car, and he promised to pay you, and he never paid you for the damage he did to your car. The defendant says he never damaged your car. There was never an agreement to repay this bail money that he gave you, but he is counterclaiming because he says that during an altercation that the two of you had, you assaulted him. You stabbed him, and he wants to be compensated for the assault. Correct? Okay. When were you together in this relationship?
In 2002 to February of 2004. Off and on.
Did you ever live together?
Yes.
When?
We were living together in February of 2004.
How long had you been living together?
About a month at that time.
Okay. First, tell me about the damage to the car so that I can get rid of the small part of your claim. When was the damage to your car and under what circumstances?
His truck got stolen. And
when?
That was before Christmas of 2003. And he had asked me to move in with him because he no longer had a vehicle, and I was to drive him back and forth to work and his daughter back and forth to school and pick her up from school and watch her after school, all that.
So can we get to the damage to the car, please?
So anyways, sometimes I would let him drive the car, but he was not very skilled at driving a stick shift. So I told him, you know, that would be only in, like, emergency type situations. And he also drove my car after he had me put in jail. When...
Listen to me. I'm not interested in your relationship from the year of the flood. Okay. You tell that to your therapist. I want to know when he damaged your car, what date he damaged your car. Give me a date.
He damaged my car on February 29th when he drove my car when I was in jail.
February 29th, 03.
04.
04. How did he damage your car?
By shifting it without engaging the clutch properly.
Were you with him at the time?
No, I was in jail.
So, how do you know that he did that?
Because my witness knew that he drove my car.
Well, let's say he drove your car in February of 2004, and that subsequently something happened to your car, the transmission, something was damaged. What proof do you have that his driving the car was the proximate cause of the injury to your car?
Yes, I do, Your Honor, because he could not coordinate the clutch, the stick.
You weren't there.
But there were times previous to this that he drove my car.
Okay.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
About this. The night that she was incarcerated, she left the car at my house in the garage. Then her friend drove the car over to her ex-husband's house, who has been convicted of stealing her car.
Oh, listen, you tell that to your therapist, too. She has no proof that you damaged her car. So
no proof. I didn't say anything.
Didn't see that in the complaint that there was any proof that you damaged the clutch of the car. So let's move on to the bail money. Let me hear the bail money. When?
On February 19th, he was arrested.
What year?
Of 2004, he was arrested at the Glendale Galleria.
Okay.
And he asked me to bail him out.
When?
On the night of February 19th of 2004.
Let me hear how that came about. Look at me.
I had the bail bondsman go in there and talk to him.
No. Listen to me. He's arrested 2/19/04. He's taken to jail. Did you go with him to jail?
No.
You went home?
No.
Where did you go?
To the Glendale Police Station.
And where did he go?
To the Glendale Police Station.
So you went with him to the police station?
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, madam. He's arrested in the mall. You didn't both get in the police car?
No.
From the mall, where did you go?
I went over to the police station.
Okay. And that's where they were holding him? What happened next?
I sent the bail bondsman in there to ask him if he wanted to be bailed out.
So that you did not speak to him, but you found a bail bondsman. Where did you find a bail bondsman?
Through the Yellow Pages.
So you went to the jail, and you must have spoken to somebody at the jail, police officer, sergeant, the desk sergeant. You spoke to somebody, no?
No.
You just went in there, and where did you get the Yellow Pages from?
I think it was on the counter.
At the police station. Opened up the Yellow Pages, found the number of a bail bondsman, called the bail bondsman, and told the bail bondsman to go inside and speak to him.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then what did you do?
And then the bail bondsman talked to me, called me on the phone. And
where were you?
I was in the car.
What car?
My vehicle. I was waiting outside the police department.
Okay, and you had a conversation with the bail bondsman?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
I called my credit card company.
And what did you advise your credit company to do?
To take the money out to bail him out.
How much?
$687 was the first amount.
You did that. And then where did you go?
I stayed and waited in the car.
Did you see Mr. Eccles that day?
Did I see him that day?
Yeah. After you got to the police station, after you had them pay out $687 through your credit card, did you see the defendant?
Yes, he was released, and I drove him home.
Okay. Now, did you pay any other money to the bail bondsman?
Yes.
When?
I think it was that night, because he wanted me to insure.
So you paid an additional sum to the bail bondsman later that evening after Mr. Eccles was released?
Yes, because Mr. Eccles promised he would pay it back.
How much did you pay after Mr. Eccles was released?
$1,913.
Okay. And you called in that evening, later, and you paid that by your credit card again?
Yes, Your Honor.
And where were you when you called your credit card company at that point?
I was at home.
And where was Mr. Eccles?
At home.
Now, what conversation did you have with Mr. Eccles with regard to this bail money?
Basically,
Not basically. What conversation did you have? You said to him, and he said to you. He comes out of jail. You've posted $687 with your credit card. He gets out of jail and says, "Hi, honey." What does he say?
He said he was not aware that he had 2 warrants out for his arrest, and that if they would have sent any kind of notification, it would have come to his old address where he lived, and that he intended to pay me back.
Okay, good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Her ex-boyfriend, Christopher Eccles, owes for bail and car damages. Christopher says Kim attacked him with a butcher's knife.
It's your turn.
Okay.
Got arrested for 2 outstanding warrants. What were the warrants for?
One was for battery and one was a traffic citation.
Battery against whom?
Domestic violence against her.
Why didn't you respond?
That's just negligence on my part not responding.
Okay. And the other violation?
Was a traffic citation that I received.
That you also just...
No, that one came up warrant with the other one, with the other domestic violence, and they just added it on.
Well, because you didn't go to court when you were supposed to.
Exactly. I'm not denying that. But the point of what I'm making here is that I never asked her to bail me out. As a matter of fact, I couldn't have asked her to bail me out because in Glendale, you cannot make a long-distance phone call.
No, listen to me. She's very smart. She doesn't say that you asked her to bail you out. The first time she posted $687 towards the bail. She says that she had not had a conversation with you, but you were released at that point. Subsequently, she gave them $1,913, and at that point, she says, you agreed to pay her back.
Right, and I did not. As a matter of fact, as I was saying, I wasn't allowed to call from the police station because it won't make a long-distance call. But there was an incident, because I'm an RN, there was an incident that happened in the cell with someone who had a low blood sugar. I helped them out with the situation, and they allowed me to use their phone to call my work and tell them I wouldn't be there the next day, and to call her cell phone. On her cell phone, I told her, do not bail me out because I will just wait till Monday because I know how much the bail is going to be.
How much was the bail going to be?
It was going to be $60,000, and 10% of that would be $6,000 that we would just be throwing away. So that at that point, I knew I didn't want to be bailed out. It's Friday.
How did you know all that?
Because I knew what the warrants were for. Remember, I knew that I had warrants, and I knew when they picked me up what the warrants were for. So I knew how much they were for, okay? She was so distraught, and my daughter was in the car with her at the time. She had to get me out at that time.
I mean, your daughter was in the mall with you when
Yes.
you were arrested?
Yes, okay?
How much did you put up for bail?
I put up $2,400. She put up $26,000, and I put up $24,000.
When did you put up the 24?
I had a credit card also.
When, Mr. Eccles, did you put up the 24? What day?
That
What-
same day. That
Friday.
Same day. Yes.
So, Mr. Eccles, let me tell you, sir, why I don't buy your story.
Okay.
Because you have just told me that you told her, do not bail me out.
Right.
I want to wait until Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And then, on Friday, you put up $2,400. They took it out of your credit card.
Right.
Now, if you wanted to wait until Monday, sir, and you didn't want to be bailed out because you didn't want to waste the money,
Right.
how come you put up $2,400?
Because it was half as much. Plus, it was not even half as much. It was less than half as much because it was originally $6,000, and he cut $1,000 off because she was distraught. So it came out to a total of $5,000.
What I'm asking you, sir, is if what you said was you didn't want to get bailed out, how come you spent $2,400 on Friday? So you wouldn't spend the weekend in jail? How come?
Because I was willing to pay.
Because you were getting a bargain. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're telling me?
and
Because you were getting a bargain?
Right.
Right?
But
Pay her the money! Pay her! Put your hand down.
I'm sorry.
Did you just lose? So you decided, well, I wasn't going to pay anything, but if all I have to pay is $2,400, if that idiot wants to pay $26,000, I might as well get out? Why don't you save
Essentially, yes.
Why don't you save your $2,400? You have a lot of money?
I do, Your Honor.
You do? Good. Pay it. $2,600. Now let's get to your counterclaim. You have a counterclaim because you say that Miss Shipley assaulted you with a knife. She got
Yes, I
very
do.
angry. She assaulted you with a knife. When did she assault you with a knife? What date?
On 2/29 of 04, here's the police report.
Just a second. Just a second. Tell me what happened.
We were arguing specifically about me not giving her keys because I was having her leave the house. It was my house. And also because I wouldn't agree to sign a paper to pay the bail. Okay? So she got very angry with me. We were standing in the kitchen, and previously the police had come out also because we had been in an argument.
Who called
because
them?
She did. Okay?
So she called the police first on that day, 2/29.
Yes, she did.
Right now, at this point, you're sorry you bailed him out.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Essentially because she wouldn't have anywhere to live. But anyway, she called the police because she was trying to get me in trouble. She smashed a bottle of wine on the table. She said that she was going to say I smashed a bottle of wine and that I was assaulting her. I convinced her, look, you're the one that has the wine stains on you. I don't have wine on me. That's not going to work. She became very angry, picked up 2 knives, which I have pictures of right here. One is 20 inch and one is 12 inches. They're butcher knives, and they're very sharp.
Right.
Okay, I have them right here.
I see them. They're big knives.
Okay. She then proceeded to chase me around the house with the knives, and then as she got closer, she was able to cut me.
Where did she cut you, sir?
On my right tricep.
Did you receive any medical treatment?
On the scene from paramedics.
What kind of treatment?
They put a island dressing on it, and they told me that I should go to the emergency room and have it stitched up.
Did you have it stitched up?
I had it stitched up by a friend of mine who works in the OR. She came over and stitched it up for me.
Okay. How many stitches did it take?
3.
Let me read.
On page 3, line 18, that's when they were questioning her. She walked away from the detectives, and then they had to detain her by handcuffing her because she wouldn't cooperate.
Okay. You were arrested. Is that correct?
And released. I was only detained.
You were arrested. Is that correct?
Yes.
For assault with a deadly weapon. Is that correct? Yes.
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 Mutual combat.
Okay. You were arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, not mutual combat. That's what you were arrested for, Ms. Shipley.
Okay.
That's what I just read. That's the police
I never
report.
saw that report.
Well, that's what the police report said. You were arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. You want to tell me what happened on the 29th with regard to the 2 knives? And then I want you to understand that I have what you told the police immediately following the incident. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. From the police report. Not what he says, what you said to the police. So why don't you tell me what happened with the 2 knives on the 29th?
He had been harassing me all day, and I had called the police out prior to that. I wanted to leave to go to my girlfriend's house.
Well, when the police came out, why didn't you leave with them?
Because the police told me that I had just as much of right to be there as he did.
Well, that doesn't answer my question, Ms. Shipley. You just told me that you wanted to leave to go to your girlfriend's house, and if you called the police, when the police came out, why didn't you say, I want to leave to go to my girlfriend's house, which is what you said you wanted to do?
Oh, my girlfriend.
Why don't you just leave?
Oh, my girlfriend wasn't home yet.
No. No. Doesn't make sense. If you're afraid of him and you want to leave, and you call the police, and the police come out, you say, I just want to get out of here because I'm afraid of him, then you leave with the police. So let's get it together. What happened with the knives?
Okay. I was in the kitchen. I had made dinner. I was washing the knife that I had cut the chicken up with. I was doing the dishes, and he ran up behind me and grabbed my wrist that I had the knife with, and we were, you know, fighting with this knife, and he got cut.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
Behave yourself.
Okay.
I don't buy it. Ms. Shipley, you got angry and you cut him with a knife. And I don't buy what happened is he came up from behind you and over a little scuffle after you were cleaning the kitchen from dinner that he just happened to get cut. You had had a fight. I assume that you were having some kind of an altercation with regard to this bail money. You had already posted bail for him in the amount of $2,600, and you wanted him to give you back the money, and he says, I'm not giving you back the money. Is that what you were arguing about?
Basically.
Okay. So you had a right to be angry when he said, I'm not giving you back the money, if that's what he said to you, right?
Well, it went a little deeper than that, but...
May have, and I'm sure it probably did. I'm sure you have a long and violent history with each other, but that's your history with each other. If he was violent with you in 2002, what you're doing with him in 2004 is absolutely beyond me. You understand? Okay.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Good, but you have no right to cut him.
I didn't cut him.
You did cut him. You told the police officer you cut him. The police officer saw the knife mark. He was treated at the scene. You can't do that. As angry as you get, you can't do that. And you had an opportunity to leave. Because according to you, things got so out of hand that you called the police once on the 29th. They came out to the house. That was the perfect opportunity. Put your hand down for you to leave. Then you say to me, well, the police told me I didn't have to leave because I had just as much right to be there as he did. It's not an answer. If you're afraid, then you leave. And you don't say, my girlfriend wasn't home. You go to her door and you wait for her to come home, right? Anyway, I do believe that the $2,600 was something that he promised to repay, and I do believe that you did in fact cut him. And that cut's going to cost you $1,000. So I am taking that $1,000 off of your $2,600 that I believe he owes you for bail, and I'm entering a judgment in your favor in the amount of $1,600. Judgment for the plaintiff. Your counterclaim is resolved. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't think it was totally fair.
I think it was fair.
He just has other motives.
I never agreed to make any kind of payment to her.
Violent motives.
She's the one that's violent.
He pled guilty to the assault charges.
She's the one that was actually admitted into.
And that's why he's on 3 years probation.
Anger management program that she had to go through for a year.
I don't want any more violent relationship.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Carter versus Powell. Step forward, please.
Travel agent Trenace Carter is suing ministers Melody and Brendan Powell for loss of business and slander. The Powells are countersuing for slander and pain and suffering.
Ms. Carter, I gather you are suing for some sort of breach of contract, and the contract would be an oral contract that you had with the defendants to plan a trip as a travel agent for a large group of people that was supposed to go on a cruise. Is that generally correct?
No. I put together a cruise, and I contacted Melody because I needed speakers. That was the first contact I had with them. So it was my cruise to start off with, and they ran with it.
So what's your problem?
They have slandered my name and said that I'm not a travel agent. They have defamed my character, and I have been receiving emails of threatening of communication and just all kinds of disruption.
Well, what happened? Did you plan the trip for them, or did you not plan the trip for them?
I planned the trip for a group of people for myself, and I contacted her because I didn't have any idea how to contact the speaker.
So you planned a trip for a group of people yourself as a travel agent?
Yes.
But you didn't have the people?
I had a mailing list of people I needed speakers.
You didn't have anybody signed up for the cruise
No,
yet?
not yet. Not till I started advertising.
So you were planning a cruise in your mind. You didn't have any people yet. You had a mailing list of potential customers.
Right.
You contacted them because you wanted them to provide speakers. You're ministers? You have a ministry? Okay. What was the contract that you had with them?
There was no contract with them.
So what are you suing them for?
I'm suing them because there's some personal matters came into play, and that's when the drama started.
Okay. So you're suing them for saying that you were not a travel agent?
Yes.
And what else?
Defamation of character.
What were they saying about
They were saying that I was not a travel agent, I was a liar, I was just everything that they could come up with, they were saying. Show me. Here's an email that she sent to a cruise line.
This is the cruise line that you contacted because you wanted to put together a cruise with the cruise line. So you didn't want any of their church parishioners to go on your cruise?
I want that.
Just answer my question. You did not want their church parishioners to go on your cruise. They were not on your mailing list.
Correct.
Okay. You see the cruise line. Well, this email says that they want a $50 refund that one of their parishioners gave to you in order to secure a spot on this cruise. And they're saying that this parishioner called and asked for their $50 deposit back, and you told their parishioner it had already been sent to Carnival Cruise Line. And then they said that they checked with Carnival Cruise, and they don't take a $50 deposit, they take a $150 deposit, and it is their belief that you are embezzling their clients of funds in order to benefit yourself. And we ask that Carnival investigate the situation and this person who may be pretending to be an agent of Carnival Cruise Line. Go ahead.
I have a contract from Carnival that has my deposits as an agent. This states that I am a contract agent. There are my contact numbers and my IATA numbers. Those are the only way that we can book groups.
Are you a licensed travel agent?
Yes.
What about this woman's $50 deposit? Where did it go?
It went back to her. Here's her file.
When did you send it back to her?
I took it back to her personally.
Well, this letter was sent on April 12th, and you brought it back on April 16th?
I took it back to her on April 16th.
4 days after this email was sent. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is this the slander that you're talking about?
Yes, and
well, I would like you to tell me what happened in this arrangement that you were having with them, because clearly some of the people that were supposed to go on this cruise that you were trying to put together were their parishioners.
What happened was, the first part of April, I emailed Melanie that I had flyers ready.
What kind of flyers?
I'd worked on advertisement flyers and postcards and things of that matter. Called Carnival, ordered postcards, ordered letterhead, and I printed all the information on those cards and letterhead. I emailed her to let her know she could come by and pick them up.
Just a second. What was she supposed to do with the flyers?
She was supposed to be giving them out.
To whom?
To who she was inviting to the cruise.
So that I was correct when I say that you were trying to put together a cruise and some of their parishioners were supposed to be vacationers on that cruise.
Yes, so there were several
all right. Churches. That's what I...
There were several churches.
I don't care if there were several churches. I asked you about hers. You said no. It was my understanding that you were trying to put together a trip and at least some of their parishioners were supposed to go on this trip. You prepared flyers for them to distribute to their parishioners, along with maybe other people as well, and then something happened. Right?
Correct.
Okay. What happened? You called her and let her know that there were
emailed her.
flyers. You emailed her that the flyers were ready. She wasn't there. I'm going to cut to the chase now because my head's spinning. She wasn't there. Her husband decided to come over instead. And one thing led to another, and you spent part of an afternoon together. Went one place, went another place. Anyway, she comes back into town, and according to her, she got very annoyed because her husband was not supposed to be at your house, was not supposed to be out to lunch with you, was not supposed to be doing anything else with you, and she canceled your participation in the cruise. So far, is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. And then, this is what you're complaining about.
Yes, and there have been several people that have been calling me.
You can't tell me what those people said to you, madam? That's
No, I know.
hearsay. You have
I know.
anything else, any other emails that you want to show me?
Yes, the ones that she has been harassing me with.
I'd like to see them, please. What were you doing with her husband in the afternoon?
He called me and said Melanie was out of town and he could come by and pick up the flyers. I said, well, I'm at home. You can come by and pick them up. I said I was supposed to be gone, but things didn't work out for me to go. He said, well, I can drop you by the DMV. That was no problem.
What DMV? I didn't hear anything about a DMV.
Right.
I said home, not home. What?
When he came, he said, well, that was where I was supposed to go, so he was checking to see if I was home to come by and pick up the flyers.
So he came over and he got the flyers.
Right. He offered to drop me at the DMV.
So he
while
offered
he was
to
on the
take you
phone.
someplace where you wanted to go.
Right. That was when he gave me the check for the deposit, the $50. And he took the flyers.
So you went to the DMV. He took you to the
DMV was closed. They had went to
Closed.
lunch.
Oh.
So we went over to McDonald's and picked up food, and we sat at their house 20 minutes, waiting
Okay,
for
so
the
you
DMV
just a
open.
second. So the DMV was closed.
Right.
You went and got some lunch, and then you went back to their house.
Correct.
And had your lunch in their
Right.
house. Waited until the Department of Motor Vehicles opened again.
Right.
Then he took you back to Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
And then where did you go?
Went home.
Then you went home.
Right.
Stupid! Not harassment. She's tired of you. She's tired of the explanations. Listen.
Well, I had stopped communicating with her completely.
Good. Stop communicating. Block her emails. Can't you do that? Put a block?
Yeah, you can
Say
block.
I don't want to hear from her anymore?
You can block.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Don't want to hear from you anymore. Listen, you had a business arrangement that didn't go anywhere.
Right.
There was no contract. You did a foolish thing. You did a foolish thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got angry. You retaliated. You don't have to see each other anymore, right? You don't like each other. You're not going to do business with each other anymore. Correct?
That's right.
Good. Goodbye.
Excuse, you may step out.
This was the first time I saw them, and I forgave them a long time ago.
A scam trying to get money off of our churches and nonprofit organizations to benefit herself.
It went south when both of us made silly mistakes.
She needed my help for some transportation to get to the DMV. I offered my assistance. That was a dumb thing, but it's behind me now.
I went under the assumption that his wife knew what was going on, and that's how it went.
Well, I don't think it was legitimate.
Forgive and forget. Move on.
26-year-old student Mary Sandy Saturday is suing 25-year-old store owner Taquana Colvin for lost wages due to a false arrest. Taquana claims Sandy assaulted her, and she's countersuing for lost wages and emotional distress.
This is case number 83 on the calendar in the matter of Saturday versus Colvin. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Who is this?
This is my mother.
Who is this?
This is my mom.
Do you work?
I just graduated college.
And you?
I have my own business.
What kind of business?
It's a secondhand store that sells home interior and clothing.
Okay. How long have you been in that business?
Just 4 months.
And what kind of work does your mother do?
My mother's retired.
From what?
The electric company.
You think your mother ever had a fist fight with anybody?
Yes, I do.
You do? You think your mother ever had a fist fight with anybody?
She has not.
Right?
Right, it's not.
Ridiculous, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Did you ever have a fist fight with anybody?
Yes, I have.
Really?
Yes.
How many times?
One time, someone came to my house to fight me.
How long ago?
25 years ago.
Okay. One time. I don't understand girls having fights.
My mother had a fist fight.
Sorry, Byrd, I don't care. Yeah, I'm sure your mother's a nice lady. I don't
She
understand.
is.
I don't understand ladies having fists. I don't understand men having fist fights, but they're men, so you sort of understand it. But I don't understand women.
Yes, having fights.
Nurturers. Caregivers.
Yes.
Pulling hair, scratching eyes, using their... I don't understand that. You agree?
Yes, I agree.
So, it is your claim that the defendant had you falsely arrested twice for various acts, and the second time was for violating a protective order that she had against you. The defendant has a cross-complaint. The defendant's cross-complaint is that you assaulted her and caused her to lose a contact lens, so you both want lots of money from the other for emotional distress and this loss of your freedom and the filing of false charges against you. Those charges were subsequently dismissed after a trial.
Yes.
Okay. How do you know each other?
I met Taquana through a mutual friend.
What started the problem between the two of you?
Taquana is just a bad person. I was around her only for about 2 months, and the type of person she is just, she's a bad person. She does bad things. She's very argumentative.
So you didn't like her?
Yeah, and I decided I didn't want to be around her. And while she was still friends with the friend that we met through, I even told Taquana, like, well, since you're around her and I'm around her, we're going to get along, just like that. And the last time I had seen Taquana was probably like the beginning of June of 2003, and didn't see her again to September 9th, September 10th at a nightclub. And I seen her with her cousin. I went up to her cousin, because Taquana and her cousin, they just started being back friends.
Listen to me.
Okay.
I have other cases to do.
Okay,
today. Let's get to it.
Okay, well, I said something to Taquana's cousin, and evidently her cousin said something to her.
So you said something negative
I
about
really didn't say. I'll tell you what I said. When I was seeing her cousin, I went to her, I gave her a hug, and I told her, I was like, if you need a friend to hang around, I will hang around you. You do not have to hang with Taquana. Taquana is a bad person.
So you said negative things about her?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. On September 10th, the night that I seen her, Taquana called like 3:40 in the morning, left me this crazy, terrible message telling me that she's going to handle me. She's going to come to my house. She's going to see me, this and this and that, and she's going to call me early in the morning. At 8:40 in the morning, she also called me and told me that she's going to come over my house and handle me. And I have the recording right here if you would like to hear it. Brace yourself.
Saved message.
Okay, just stop. Stop the tape. Make it lower, Byrd, so that, because it probably is distorting the sound, so that I can hear it. I got the gist of it. Why would you call her and leave that kind of a message?
Because Sandy had been slandering my name to relatives as well as...
what had she been saying about you that you heard?
She had been saying that I give oral sex, I will steal your man, I will steal your money, I'm a bad person, just all types of things about my character that were false.
So
I was...
You think that a message like that says that you're a good person?
No, it doesn't.
You think it says that you are a genteel person?
I think that that type of message would just lead somebody to believe that I was highly upset.
Well, we're going to get her, because that's what you said.
Yes,
in the message. That's what you said in
I
the
didn't say that I was going to get her.
Well, pretty much.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Sandy Saturday says Taquana Colvin had her falsely arrested for assault. Taquana claims Sandy beat her up and threatened her life.
She called you and she left a nasty message. What's next?
Okay, when she filed a false charge against me for, she said I was stalking her. This was like on March 10th.
Let me see what she filed against you.
And that's how my mother got involved.
Well, it says that, did she assault you in September of 2003?
Yes.
How?
Sandy called me back at my cousin's house, and we talked, and she stated at that time that she didn't want to fight me, and she was tired of arguing with me. And so at that time I asked Sandy, what will it take for you to stop?
That is the whole
No. Listen to me.
Okay.
Say nothing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What will it take for you to stop slandering my name and talking about me constantly? And I suggested, if I give you back your $50 for the 50-cent concert ticket, would that settle the dispute?
Why were you going to give her back the $50? Had she given you $50 and you didn't give her the ticket?
Yes, she had, I gave her the ticket, actually. She had gave me, before we went on a summer vacation together, I purchased a set of 3 tickets. One was for Mary, one was for another person, and one was for myself. And we went on the summer vacation where Sandy and this other woman started being really mean to me. So by the time that I returned to Cincinnati, I had pretty much decided that I was going to end the relationship with Mary and her friend, and that they were not going to the concert with me. I had purchased them on my credit card, and what I wanted to do was just reimburse them for their money. And take other people, and Mary agreed.
That was September
10th.
Yeah.
So I went over to her house.
What time?
Almost noon.
Okay.
When I stepped up on the curb, Mary appeared at the door. She ran out of her house and ran down the steps, and she approached me. She asked me, what the do you have to say now? And I said, I don't have anything to say to you. I'm coming over here, and before I could finish my sentence, she punched me in the forehead.
And then what happened?
And she continued punching me. She started choking me. I was pushing Mary back by her shoulders, constantly asking her to stop fighting me. She was choking me, said, I'm going to choke the hell out of you. I'm going to kill you. Basically, I punched Sandy back a few times or so, trying to keep her off me. I turned and I ran across the street, and she chased me across the street and grabbed me by the back of my hair. It was just basically hitting on me.
Fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me your interpretation of the events of September 10th.
I never called Taquana. I never spoke with Taquana. I haven't had a conversation with Taquana since probably the end of May. About around 12 o'clock or whatever, ritual, I go to the gym around that time. I comes out my house, and Taquana's sitting in her car waiting for me. And I walked down the stairs, and we just started fighting. But you didn't hear the rest of this tape. The tape is crazy, and it's just crazy. And the police, I did call the police because I live on a cul-de-sac, and Taquana and some girl kept riding on the adjacent street from me. And I sat on my porch and waited.
And you were arrested as a result of...
I was arrested 12 days later, the first time.
But for this incident?
For
this incident on September 10th?
Yeah, I was arrested on September 22nd.
Can I see the paperwork you have, please?
Okay. This is for the assault. This is the dismissal for the TPO, and this is the acquit for the valet and the protection order.
Yeah, well, it says on September 18th. Not September 10th. It says it's September 18th. Was there another argument on September 18th?
No.
No. Obviously,
I got this all wrong.
She had did this to other people in 2003 too. So since she done did it to so many people, they probably got mixed up.
Well, maybe I'll ask that question. Maybe it will be in this other report. Have you been cited for any other assault in 2003?
No, ma'am.
Yes, you have. Right here.
You sure? Before I look at any other document, Ms. Colvin.
I totally forgot about that, but I didn't have to go to court on it.
Can I see it, please? That's not what I asked
drove
you.
us to the police. Yes, ma'am.
And this fight
let me ask you
in 2000.
Yes, you certainly have. How many times have you been cited for assault?
I think just 2 leading up to that situation.
It's fair to say that you have a problem with your temper.
I don't have a problem with my temper.
How many times have you been taken into custody for assault?
None.
With the exception of this time?
Yeah, with the exception of that one. Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Including myself, two other people filed protection orders against Taquana in 2003.
And they were dismissed. Can I see them, please?
All for the same thing.
Can I see them, please?
No, that's not true.
Can I
speak,
take a look?
Judge?
What?
Can I speak?
Sure.
Okay. Ma'am, Sandy is saying that Taquana does all this and all that. This has been a big ongoing thing with our cousin.
Listen to me. I have a
Yes.
who sought a protective order against you.
Ex-boyfriend.
I don't care, but he sought a protective order.
Okay.
I have a...
Yes, and they were both dismissed.
They were both dismissed. Listen to me. You have a temper. I just heard it.
Okay.
Okay, so I have one incident here that caused this protective order. It was ultimately dismissed.
Yes.
Okay, now let's get to the second one. The second cause of action that you have is that these two ladies came to your place of business and you told your boss that there was a protective order because there was a temporary protective order in place. He asked you to leave. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you did leave.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you filed a violation of the temporary protective order.
Yes, ma'am. Can I tell you what happened?
Sure.
When we
No. I want her to tell me what happened.
I left the bar manager.
How many bars are there in Cincinnati?
Many.
So how do you think it came about that you chose the one where she was employed to go into with your mother?
It's not that I chose the one that she was employed at. I live on that street. My business is on that street. And I attend that bar several times a week. Mary chose to get a job at that bar knowing that I had already been living on that street, had already been owning a business on that street. She got the job. Did she have proof of how long she had been working at that bar?
Just a second. Don't ask me. You're showing your temper, honey.
Okay.
I'm going to just let you go. You're going to bury yourself. On what basis do you claim that she violated the protective order?
Before the bar manager came over to ask me if I had a restraining order against her or whatever, I agreed. I told him, yes, I did have a temporary restraining order against her. He said, okay, that's fine. When you finish with your drink, would you please leave? I said, sure, I will leave when I'm finished with my drink.
Why didn't you just leave?
Because I was in the middle of my drinks as well. I was with
when
my
you
relatives.
file a protective order against somebody, that
I was
means...
there first, Your Honor.
Be quiet. Be quiet. When you file a protective order against someone, Miss Colvin, it means that you're afraid of them, right?
Supposedly, yes.
What do you mean supposedly, yes?
That you're supposed to be afraid of this person. Yes.
Right. So
But I was with my...
Sit down. So I would assume that when you filed, since you say you're a normal person, that when you filed a protective order against her, you filed it because you were afraid of her.
Right.
Well, then, I wouldn't wait till I finished my drink, even though I was there first. I would say to my mother, I don't want there to be any trouble. Let's go. You, on the other hand, decided to stay because you were there first. And your store is on that street, and you had a right to be. Well, that's what you just told me. You said I was there first.
I was there first, but I was going to leave like the bar manager asked me when I finished my drink.
He shouldn't have to ask you.
Okay.
Don't you understand what I just said? He shouldn't have to ask you,
because
madam.
I'm supposed to be afraid, right?
Let me tell you something. I believe that she filed these protective orders against you, and I believe she filed them maliciously. And I believe she knew about filing protective orders because she had already been served with a few herself in her lifetime, so she knew exactly what kind of trouble you could get into. Now, is the assault that you are claiming the assault when you went over to give her back her $50? That's your counterclaim, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's baloney. Because that girl whose foul, fresh mouth left 2 messages on that machine did not go over to make peace the next day. No way. So your counterclaim is dismissed.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe that she did file these cases against you maliciously. You were ultimately fired from your job. You're seeking $3,000 in damages. Now, my question to you is, do you believe that you acted appropriately in all of your dealings with the
acted
defendant?
very appropriately.
Okay. Put your hand down. Better teach your daughter a little self-control. She needs it. Tell me about your job. When did you lose your job?
Let me tell you what they did. When they talking about they was going to just leave after the drink, no, they put up a fight to stay in the bar. They put up a fight. And
what did they say?
They was talking to the manager, talking about it's a public place. They have the right to come and drink this and this and that. And I get to work at 6 o'clock. About 7:15, they were still in there. And then three police officers came to my job, got me from out the bar, and arrested me. Taquana told them I threatened to kill her.
You mean at the bar?
At the bar. And then a few days later, or the next day, her and her mother, she get it from her mother. She get it from her mother. Her and her mother requested a meeting with the bar manager and the owner to get me fired.
Is that when you were fired 3 days later?
Yes.
But you were removed from the bar by the police?
I was physically removed and arrested.
Why?
She was removed from the bar because she went back by the register and turned around and faced me and my party and did this, and at the same time said that you were dead.
You shouldn't have been there.
Yes, ma'am.
You were annoying her. Okay. You and your mother. And whoever else you were with. You had no right to be there. Saturday is seeking compensation for having her falsely arrested and for losing her job in the amount of $3,000. I'm awarding her $3,000.
Thank you.
You better learn to watch yourself. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000.
Thank you.
That's all.
Everything that girl said was a lie. Everything. Her life is a lie.
We don't want Mary to call our house or even be, talk about her in the street. She won the money. That's all she wants. She needs to let it go.
This should be the end of it.
Her mother is the devil. She's the devil advocate. I'm grown. I didn't bring my mother into this. She brought my mother into this because she made false charges against my mother, too.
She knew that I was coming over there like we agreed on the telephone, and I was approaching the building to give her the money.
Taquana got what she deserves. She has done this to other people, and I'm the only one who took it this far, but she got what she deserved.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Tarter versus Hughes. Step forward, please.
Bus driver Catherine Tarter is suing her estranged son-in-law, 25-year-old salesman Donald Hughes, for the cost of a trailer. Donald says Catherine is angry about his pending divorce from her daughter.
Ms. Tarter, the defendant is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. And
Yes.
according to your complaint, he owes you some money for a trailer. Is that right?
Yes.
The defendant says he's paid you a substantial amount of money for the trailer, doesn't owe you any more. You have the motorhome that went with the trailer. He doesn't have it in his possession. It's not on his property. I assume this is your daughter?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
4 years, Your Honor.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children?
I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and then I had 2 sons that came with the marriage that are still dear to me.
And who does that child live with?
I have sole custody.
Is that after a hearing, after a trial?
Yes.
Does their mother have visitation with the children?
No, she does. She has 2 hours supervised visits a week.
Does she exercise the visitation?
Sometimes.
Prior to the divorce, did you have a reasonable relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Tarter?
Yes, I did.
Is that right?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 girls.
How many grandchildren do you have?
3.
How much money was this trailer?
It was $4,000.
Just for the trailer?
Just for the trailer, and the motorhome was $4,000, so they agreed upon $8,000.
And how much do you say it was, sir?
It was $4,000 altogether for both of them.
Is there a writing with regard to that?
We had a verbal agreement.
Is there a writing with regard to that, is my question.
No.
How much have you paid them for the trailer?
I paid them $1,950 for the trailer and the motorhome together.
But you only have the
I only have the trailer.
trailer. Did Mr. Hughes pay you $1,950?
No, ma'am.
How much did he pay you?
The motorhome broke down.
I'm not talking about the motorhome.
Okay, well,
He doesn't have the motorhome.
He paid us, I know, they returned it, so therefore all the payments that were paid individually towards the motorhome and the trailer were forfeited. And they were always...
Forfeited by whom?
By us. It was written down where when he paid us money, that $75 would go towards the motorhome and $75 would go towards the trailer. When one was given back in case they decided they couldn't afford it, or that it broke down, which the motorhome did, and they couldn't afford to fix it, they gave it back to us. So therefore, the motorhome payments, which were $425, was forfeited, and then $425 was credited towards the utility trailer.
All I'm asking you is that in writing someplace?
I typed up a legal contract because
Did he
at first
sign
was-
it?
He refused to sign it.
The answer is you do not. You do not have that in writing. Is that correct?
My daughter signed it, and
I don't
he
care
did
what your
not.
daughter signed, madam. I mean, I happen to think that you're missing a few screws, and I'm going to tell you why. You have a 1.5-year-old granddaughter. Your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law has sole custody, which suggests to me that if you want to maintain a relationship, and it seems to me you enjoyed a reasonable relationship with him before, if you want to enjoy a reasonable relationship with your granddaughter, you should keep him on your good side and not sue him, because it would appear to me that your daughter had to be a pretty deficient person in order to end up at the end of a custody dispute with 2 hours a week supervised visitation. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Why would a normal person who has 3 grandchildren risk the wrath of their custodial parent over nonsense? Over nonsense. He's paid you money. And how much child support is your daughter paying for her daughter?
She's not, and they're not divorced yet.
I don't care whether they're divorced or not. If she were the custodial parent and taking care of the child, and he came to me and said, in the course of a legal dispute, and I said to him, how much money are you paying for child support? And he said, well, we're not divorced yet, so I'm not paying for anything. I would wipe up the floor with him. I asked you a simple question. The simple question was, how much money was paid to you by him for either the trailer and or the motorhome?
$425 for the trailer and $425 for the motorhome.
Are you passive-aggressive? How much money was paid in total for both things? Just don't give me $425 for each. How much money do you say was paid in total?
$850.
Okay. And you say $1950.
Yes, I do.
Can you prove that to me?
No, I can't. I have no receipts due to my house being taken from my wife, and then when I got my house back, I had no paperwork, no receipts, no pink slip.
They say $850. What makes you think it was $1950?
Because I paid on time, sometimes a couple days late, but every month was paid since October of 2002 until December of 2003.
So far, is that right?
No, Your Honor. I have a payment schedule here
Let me see.
showing. They were to pay $26 for insurance.
I'm not talking about insurance. I'm talking about how much money he actually paid to you. Okay. $1,450 is, by your calculations, what he paid to you. Not $850, $1,450, based upon this.
Your Honor, those payments were divided up between the motorhome and the trailer equally.
I just told you, he doesn't have the motorhome. You do.
No, we've sold it since then.
Well, that's not my problem. That's not his problem.
Well, I asked him to return the motorhome when he refused the one payment and took it back.
Miss Tarter, you're not following me. If you think they owe you anything for the motorhome, get it from your daughter. Do I make myself clear? You are a very foolish lady. A very foolish lady. If I were in your position, I would not alienate the father, the custodial parent of my granddaughter. I would not alienate him. And for a very stupid reason, money. You
Well,
did.
This has been going on for over a year.
No, that's not true. Because December of 2003, which is not over a year, he made a payment to you of $500. That's according to your own record.
But we
And
sold it to him on March '03, is when the trailer and the motorhome was sold to them.
Did you hear what I said to you? It's not been going on for over a year. He made a payment to you of $500 in December of 2003.
Yes, he caught
When
it.
was the last time your daughter sent any money for the support of his child?
March. That's not an issue. They're not divorced
It's
yet.
an issue, madam, if you're using your brains. March of 2003. Was she employed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Where was she employed?
At Child Time.
Until when?
October of 2003.
And what did she do with her money?
I thought she was paying bills, but she wasn't. She was using it on drugs.
Was she placed in a rehab?
I placed her in a rehab in January.
Did she stay?
She stayed for 60 days, Your Honor. And then she went to was supposed to go to a halfway house, and she ended up getting kicked out of there for doing it again, drinking.
Where are her other two children?
One lives with his father, and the other one lived with the grandparents.
Ms. Tarter, I find that the defendant has paid you $1,450 for a trailer. I find that your agreement was $4,000 for the trailer and the motorhome, not $8,000. Whatever deficiency there is, I suggest you get it from your daughter. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
I don't want my daughter to not see her mom or her grandparents or anything, but I see where the daughter gets it from.
He's refused me custody of my daughter. He's refused me parental rights to my daughter, visitation to my daughter, and everything else. I've done everything that the courts have asked me to do.
She kidnapped my daughter from when we were getting Christmas pictures. She ran me over with a car.
I was having meth at the time.
Her drug use, it just kind of just tore the whole family apart.
I told him to bring the trailer back or I would report it stolen. He says, well, you might as well report it stolen and you can kiss your granddaughter goodbye because you're never going to see her again.
Hopefully it'll work out. I really do, because it's not about me, her, or the grandparents. It's actually about the children.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McGinnis versus Carter. Step forward, please.
Restaurant owner Michael McGinnis is suing his former employee, 20-year-old student Amanda Carter, for stealing 180 sodas.
Mr. McGinnis, you own a restaurant, and the defendant was an employee of yours. She worked as a waitress. Your complaint is rather unique, sir. It is your claim that while she was employed by you, when she wrote out checks, she did not charge customers for sodas. According to you, based upon your calculations, approximately 180 sodas were not charged because you believe that it's impossible for people to have ordered that many meals without ordering a drink. And therefore you claim that Ms. Carter stole from you and you want her to reimburse you in the amount of $315, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. When did you start to work for Mr. McGinnis, Ms. Carter?
The beginning of December.
And how long did you work for him?
I worked for him for 4 months.
What kind of restaurant is it?
It's a sports bar.
Is this your first job as a waitress?
No, it's not.
How old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
All right. So, Mr. McGinnis, tell me what makes you think that Ms. Carter stole from you.
My wife and I, Your Honor, went to a food show. We returned from the food show, and my wife checked receipts. And for her receipts that day, there were 18 meals that there were no drinks charged on.
Okay.
So the day before that, there were no drinks charged that day. But our policy is, all meals, you charge drinks. I asked Amanda, why were there no drinks charged on the meals? And her reply was, I forgot.
She forgot to charge them?
She forgot to charge them.
Okay.
But the only thing that the server can get to themselves are sodas, chips and salsa. Everything else they have to order through the screen. But I just can't believe, Your Honor, that individuals are choking down cheeseburgers and nachos and burritos without drinking anything.
Well, she already told you. She said she forgot.
She forgot to charge.
Yeah, that's what she said. She said she forgot.
Right. But 180 times, she didn't forget to take her tips home. She didn't forget to pick up her check.
Right.
She forgot to charge for sodas, time after time.
When you do a check, how is the bill generated?
It's generated without the drink.
So the cost of the food itself comes off the computer.
Yes.
And then the server has to take an additional step before they add up the bill and add on 4 drinks,
Yes.
and then you total it.
Yes, Your Honor.
So she said to you, I forgot.
Yes.
And she's just lazy. Well, what do you think she was doing? You think she was serving these drinks and drinking them all herself?
No, Your Honor. I believe that she was serving the drinks and possibly telling the patron that she was buying the drinks for them in order to get a better tip.
That's a possibility. It's also a possibility she forgot, right?
I don't think so, Your Honor.
It's also, well, it's a possibility. It's just as possible as the scenario that you proposed, that she told all these 18 people on one day, I'm not charging you for drinks, you can add it to my tip, right?
Yes.
It's just as possible as that. You say she's a thief.
Well, not looking at the face, but looking at the proof, I believe she's running a little scam on me.
You didn't charge for the drinks, Amanda. How come you didn't charge for the drinks?
I didn't charge for the drinks because they simply weren't ordered. The bar area is first when you come into the restaurant, and many people came into the bar and bought their beer and their mixed drinks and such and purchased them from the bartenders and then made their way into the dining area where there are TVs where people like to come in and watch sports.
All right, but it's also possible, Amanda, that occasionally you let slip by.
Oh, yeah,
served the drinks
definitely.
and didn't put it on the bill, right?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Very big possibility, yes.
Do you ever tell people, listen, I'm not going to charge you for the sodas, so you could add it to my tip?
No, I've never done that.
Now, I can understand. You said to me, Amanda served those drinks, and she got the money for it and pocketed the money, and therefore she's a thief. But you're not saying that. You're saying that you choose to believe that instead of being forgetful, stupid, you know, she's a criminal, a thief. She stole money from you. And I don't buy that, Mr. McGinnis. I think that that's a very nasty thing to think about. What is, are you on medication?
Am I on my medication?
Are you on any medication, sir? I'm wondering why you've got this grin on your face that seemed plastered onto your face. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I can't believe you had 18 people in a row drinking water that day.
I did not steal anything from Mr. McGinnis.
And Amanda's not stupid.
It would have been highly impossible to do so.
Quite obvious what was going on.
I enjoyed working for him while I did.
I think we'll put shock collars on all the servers.
I wish him the best of luck with everything that he's trying to work with his business.
Court manager Ramona Clark is suing daycare provider Jennifer Morgan for damage to her home and an assault. Jennifer claims Ramona's husband sexually assaulted her 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah, this is case number 300 on the calendar on the matter of Clark versus Morgan. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Ms. Clark, it is your claim that the defendant came to your home. She came with other relatives of hers. She damaged your home and assaulted you. And this was all over an incident that involved your husband, who I see is not present today. Ms. Morgan says she was very angry with your husband because he had sexually abused a cousin of hers. And she did, in fact, come to the house, but she neither damaged the house nor did she assault you. How do you know each other?
My husband and her boyfriend are childhood friends.
When did this sexual assault allegedly take place, Miss Morgan?
In July of 2003.
Where did it allegedly take place?
At my house.
And what was Miss Clark's husband doing at your house?
He was originally at the bar with my ex. She came into the bar, took his keys from him because he was there. He called my house, didn't have anywhere to go, so my ex went and picked him up and let him come spend the night at our house because they were fighting.
And how old is this cousin of yours? Who
13.
Now, I gather that that case has been resolved. Is that right?
He's in jail for it now.
And he pled guilty to assault?
Sexual assault.
Sexual assault? Mm-hmm. How long is your husband incarcerated?
He's incarcerated for another year.
How long has he been incarcerated?
A year. I don't know how that...
Do you have a different...
Yes.
Go ahead.
He took the plea bargain. They gave him, I forget how many years it was, but he has to stay in jail for 10 years because part of his plea bargain was to waive his right to all appeals and modifications.
And this happened July what?
I believe it was around the 26th.
So on the 26th, you were advised by your 13-year-old cousin that
Yes.
this assault had taken place?
Yes.
Who went over to the plaintiff's house?
Me, my sister, her husband, and my ex.
Why did you go over there?
Because we were mad.
That the way you respond?
No, we didn't go over there to do anything to her. In fact, when we arrived to the house, I am the one who knocked on the door, and I asked for her because I felt sorry for her. I really did. I mean, how can you tell somebody your husband just raped my 13-year-old cousin? She came to the door, then he came to the door. When he came to the door, he stepped outside. He was a nervous wreck. He was like this. He knew what we were there for. As soon as he steps outside, my sister's husband went after him. They fought on the sidewalk. She comes outside.
Just a second. That is a mistake. You understand that. That was the wrong thing to happen.
Right. I know that, but I didn't do it. I didn't.
Miss Morgan, listen to me. What did you go there for?
To confront him for my 13-year-old cousin.
All right, Miss Clark, let me hear you. What happened when she arrived there?
When her and her family members arrived, they were beating down the door. My daughter here and my husband were on their way down the steps to find out what the heck was going on because it was throughout the neighborhood you could hear them screaming obscenities and everything. Just as Brandy went to open the door, it came open. I mean, they just piled in. In the process of Dion being behind Brandy, she got hurt the worst. They were dragging him out of the house and throwing him everywhere, beating and punching him. And when I came out the house, Jennifer came at me with a broken, rusty rake, and she threw it. She went and shoved it in my stomach, and I fell against steps. And Brandy went after her, and another girl went after her. And You are amazing. It was You are no amazing. way.
Miss Morgan, say nothing until it's your turn. Do you understand? Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We were just outnumbered. We just had to just go in the house. My other daughter called the police because it was horrible. It was like a rumble, tumble, everything. And they were.
You have any photographs of your house?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Tell me about your injuries.
Well, I didn't really have too many injuries because I just fell into the steps, but my husband was really beat up.
Well, I'm not here to discuss your husband. And while I absolutely abhor what happened that day, and I'm not talking about the night before, I'm talking about that day and Miss Morgan and her family and friends coming to your house, which I think is wholly inappropriate. Uncross your hands. Your husband's injuries are your husband's injuries. My question to you, Ms. Clark, is it is clear to me that Miss Morgan was not alone. This young lady was with her, according to her, as well as 2 other men. Why didn't you sue them?
I didn't even know who they were, and that lady right there wasn't present.
I wasn't present?
No, she wasn't present.
Okay.
Step up. You were there?
Yeah.
Good. What's your name?
Sarah Weiser.
When you grow up, your top is going to fit your pants so that it all comes together. When you come to court, we don't do that. You're supposed to come to court looking like you're coming to court. You were there that day? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh, is not an answer.
Yes.
That's better. What did you go there for?
To confront her husband.
Why? That's what the police are for.
Because he raped our 13-year-old cousin.
That's what the police are for.
And we called the police.
Before you went over or after? It's not an answer.
After.
Same time.
What do you mean the same time? What does that mean, the same
We
time?
called her mother. Her mother called the police while we were in pursuit to her house.
What do you do, what do you do for a living? I'm speaking. What do you do for a living?
Home daycare.
You do what?
Daycare.
For children?
Yes. I have 4 children.
How old are you?
28.
28, 4 children. Do your 4 children all have the same father?
No.
How many different fathers do your 4 children have?
2.
Do any of them live with you?
Any of my children's fathers?
Yes.
Yes.
Which ones?
The one that came to her house.
I thought you said he was your ex.
He is my ex, but we still live together.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Ramona Clark says family acquaintance Jennifer Morgan owes for damage to her home and for an assault. Jennifer says Ramona's husband sexually assaulted her 13-year-old cousin.
Let me explain something to you, Miss Morgan. You had absolutely no right, either with or without Miss Bear Midriff over here, to go to her house that day with either alone or with anybody else. You had no right to terrorize her, and you had no right to terrorize her daughter.
They were not touched. They were not touched.
I said terrorize, you idiot!
This originally started as a criminal case. She filed charges against me. The state dropped them.
Let me tell you something, madam. The state where you reside may decide that whatever actions you did that day were motivated by female testosterone that was running in your blood and by the testosterone of the 2 idiot males that you were with. But in this country, we don't do what you did. Because according to what you told me when you started, this lady came to a bar where her husband was. He was drunk. She took the car keys away so that he wouldn't drive, so that he couldn't hurt himself or hurt somebody else. So she doesn't sound like she is a lunatic. It sounds like she was trying to do the responsible thing. Your ex, genius that he is, said, come and sleep in my house. So he brought him back to the house, and somebody wasn't minding the store at your house. Because if you have a drunk man staying in your house, it seems to me you watch him very, very carefully. You certainly don't respond to that kind of action, the kind of action that he committed, by going to his house and terrorizing his family. Idiot. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,500. That's all. Out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It's a shame that the vicious nature of some people can destroy the lives of others.
I hope it gave her a reason to really want to stick by her husband, who's in jail for 10 years.
There was no DNA evidence.
It was 1 in 500 quintillion that it was him.
It's crazy. All kind of stuff going through my head, wondering if the accusations are true.
It was up to us to bust it for what he did, and that's what we did.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Burnett versus Burnett, step forward.
Drug counselor Frenchie Burnett is suing her ex-boyfriend, maintenance man Quentin Barnett, for vandalizing her Pontiac Grand Am twice. Frenchie claims he was caught red-handed both times.
You're not related to each other.
No, ma'am.
But he was your boyfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you broke up with him?
Yes.
According to what I'm piecing together from your complaint, he didn't take this breakup well.
No, ma'am, he did.
And he vandalized your car, according to you? He came to your job and created a scene, harassing you. You want him to compensate you for both?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burnett says he just wanted to talk, right?
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't want to talk to you. When did he vandalize your car?
On August 26, 2004.
Tell me about it.
Earlier that evening, I had Mr. Burnett had called me stating he wanted to come by my house and talk to me. Mr. Burnett at that time was not welcome at my house, so I told him he could not come.
When had you broken up with him?
The second week in August of 2004.
Do you care to tell me why?
Around that time, my house was broken into, and at that time, I was suspicious of Mr. Burnett, and I asked him to leave my home and ended the relationship.
Was he living with you at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
How long had he been living with you?
About a year.
Why did you think he was somehow responsible for the burglary?
The last 6 months of our relationship was very disruptive. We were into a lot of arguments. I didn't like the type of people he was hanging around, and he was just, suspicious to me.
Tell me what happened on August 26th.
Mr. Burnett called and stated he was coming over to my house. At that point, I sat in my living room looking out the window waiting on him. When I saw him arrive, he did not get out in my driveway. He got out down the street from my house, and I saw him exit a vehicle and walk toward my house. As he walked toward my house, he started to ring the doorbell and knock on the door. At that point, I called the police, and all of a sudden, I heard a noise outside my window. I looked outside my kitchen window where my car was and saw Mr. Burnett vandalizing my car.
What did he do to the car?
He smashed the front windshield. The two rear view mirrors were smashed out, and then he took a iron brick and scarred the whole car up.
You have a police report?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
May I see it, please?
I also have pictures.
I'd like to see those too. Did you have a hissy fit?
No, ma'am.
Did you scratch her car?
No, ma'am.
What did you do to her car?
I didn't do anything to the car. I went over there. She didn't let me in, so I left.
She told you not to come over to begin with.
Yes, she did.
She told you not to come over. What'd you go over there for?
Because I wanted to talk to her.
She didn't want to talk to you.
Well.
Are you trying to tell me you just left?
Yeah, I did just leave.
Mm-hmm. No.
Oh, well, whatever.
Okay. When was the next act of vandalism on the car?
August the 27th.
What happened then?
Earlier that day, Mr. Burnett had been calling me on my job with harassing phone calls and threats.
What did he say?
That he was going to get me, that he was going to call my boss and cost me my job, that he was going to beat my A and everything according to that. He also came up on my job that day and attempted to assault me. As a result of his actions against me on my job, I lost my job, and I have a police report to
I'd like to see it, please. In the year that you were living together, how many times were the police called to your house because of assaults?
Several.
Who assaulted whom?
He got the assault charge.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Why what?
What'd you hit her for?
Because she did something to me.
What did she do to you?
She hit me first, so I hit her back.
Oh, well, if she hit you first, that's the reason. So you hit her back. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I bit her.
You bit her?
On the job.
Sounds like a relationship made in heaven. Tell me what happened on the 27th, please.
Late on that evening, I went home, and that's when my son came to report to me that he was outside slashing the tires on my other car.
Tell me your name.
Gordon.
Did you get along with Mr. Burnett?
Okay.
Do you remember August 27th?
Yes.
Remember what happened with the tires of your mom's other car?
He slashed them.
What time was this?
9:30.
In the evening?
Yes, ma'am.
When you saw him slashing the tires, did you say anything to him? Did you call out to him?
No.
What did you do?
Told her, and she called the police.
Is Gordon lying?
I guess he is, because I ain't do it.
So somebody else slashed her tires?
Yeah.
And somebody else rode all over her car?
Yep.
Well, listen to me. In the year that you lived, year or so that you lived in her house, how many times was her car vandalized?
None. Zero.
None. No. I'm just trying to get some information, some basic facts from you, sir. In the year that you lived with her,
Zero.
She had 2 cars, and nothing happened to the cars, right?
Yeah, right.
And in the week following her putting you out of the house, both of her cars end up vandalized. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? Isn't that bizarre? How coincidental that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's just mind-boggling how those things just happen to come around. Isn't it mind-boggling?
Quite a coinky-dink.
Right. I see the estimates, please, on fixing your car. Mr. Barnett, you got to put a rein in on that temper, sir. You know what the policeman says about you here?
What is that?
He says you are angry. Were you angry?
He couldn't have said it about me because I wasn't over there. He must have been talking about somebody else.
Well, no. It's you. It's you. He says you're angry.
He
said your general appearance was conservative, but your demeanor was angry. Now, tell me what happened when he got to your place of employment, Miss Burnett.
He came on the job. He was very, very disturbed, wanted me to come from around the desk, and I would not.
What kind of work do you do?
Alcohol and drug counselor.
Why did you go to her place of employment, Mr. Barnett?
To talk to her.
She didn't want to talk to you. She told you that before.
Oh, okay.
You're a nice-looking young man. You have a job?
Yes.
What kind of job do you have?
A maintenance man.
So you have a job, you make a living, right?
Yes.
You find another girl, she doesn't like you anymore.
I hear you.
So you're going to leave her alone, right?
Yes.
If you don't, you're going to go to jail. Do you understand? Good. You working now?
No, ma'am.
How long did you have that job?
3 years.
On what date were you let go?
August 30th, 2004.
You caused her to lose her job, Mr. Burnett. Caused thousands of dollars worth of damage to her car. Was your temper tantrum worth it? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
I'm very happy with her decision. I finally got this closure to my life, and so I can go ahead and try to find me another job.
I went up there to talk to her. I didn't put my hands on her.
It's been mentally disturbing, a lot of mental anguish, very stressful.
I didn't do it. She didn't have no papers up there saying that I did.
I love Judge Judy, and I thank her for seeing my side of it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Raley versus Pontice. Step forward, please.
Railroad conductor Joseph Raley is suing his niece, 19-year-old student Katie Pontius, for loans to pay credit card bills and for the cost of bus tickets. Joseph says Katie is headed down the wrong path.
Mrs. Raley, I'd like you to stand up with your husband. This is your niece. Is this your sister's child or your brother's child?
My sister's child.
And according to what I read, you were very fond of her, probably still are, and you claim you made a series of loans to her, one to take a bus trip, a vacation, and then after the trip she came back to live with you and you gave her a credit card to use, and you claim with the understanding that she would make the payments on the credit card, somehow pay you back for both the trip and the credit cards. Things didn't work out in your home with her. She didn't obey the rules. So you told her to leave, and you want your money.
Yes, ma'am.
And your niece says that you were a wonderful aunt and uncle to her. You were almost like parents, and you did give her money for this bus trip, and you did give her a credit card, and she used them, but there was never any understanding that she would have to pay you back. Right?
Yes.
Do you have children?
No, ma'am.
So tell me about the first loan that you claim you made to her.
Well, my niece Katie, she had a troubled childhood, and when she turned 18, she wanted to leave home. She asked for my help, and I'd end up financing 6 bus trips for her.
Was your sister, her mother, in agreement that she leave home?
She was supportive.
Are there other children in the home?
She has 2 sisters,
Younger or older?
both younger.
What about your younger siblings? Are they still home?
My sister Roxanne, she's there. My son Matthew, who's 5 months old, and my sister Amber, who's 18.
Where did you get a 5-month-old son? Katie?
Got pregnant when I went to Utah.
That wasn't so smart.
Wasn't planned. It happened.
Got to be more careful.
Yeah, I have one on the way.
That's not being too smart.
I know.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Joseph Raley says his niece, Katie Pontius, owes almost $5,000 in loans. Joseph says Katie is a 19-year-old single mother with another child on the way.
You ever hear of birth control?
Yeah, I'm on it. I was on it. My doctor thinks I'm just immune to it or something.
Then maybe you'll be one of those unfortunate people who just have to try abstinence. If that's the case. I'd never heard of somebody who was just immune to the ingredients in birth control, but you have to take them orally in your mouth.
I do.
Doesn't work anyplace else. Who's taking care of your 5-month-old baby?
I normally do.
Are you living back at home?
No, I've moved out. I'm living with my boyfriend right now.
And you and your boyfriend take care of the 5-month-old baby?
He is going to be coming to live with me.
So right now he's with your mother?
Yes, and my 2 sisters. She's trying to take custody of my son because I'm a college student and she thinks I can't financially support him. And so she's threatening to take him away. So I'm letting him stay with her right now at this point in time. I'm not signing over any rights. She thinks I am. But I'm getting my own place really soon here, and then I'm going to take him back.
But in the meantime, you're going to have another blessed event.
Yes.
What do you want from her?
Outside of this financial settlement, I want her to pay this bill.
From what?
From what?
From
well,
what?
when it started out,
She can't get herself arrested. She can only get herself pregnant.
She's got that part down.
She's got that part down pat. You're absolutely right. So you want her to pay for the bus trips that you financed?
Yes.
And after you financed the bus trips, when did she come to live with you?
She moved in with us October 7th, 2003.
And when did she leave?
She left approximately November 14, 5 weeks. She was with us for 5 weeks, went through 5 jobs.
And now we're a year and some months later. So what brings you to court now?
Well, there was a current event in August of 2004. She's going to school. She needed clothing. Most of it's clothing. Her mother said she'd back her up. When she got her Pell Grant, October 1st, 2004, she was supposed to have paid for that portion of the bill. The Pell Grant came and went, and I never got paid. So that was it.
So her mother guaranteed payment.
She said she'd back it up and...
Her mother, is
yes.
what you tell you, her mother guaranteed payment.
Yes.
I received my financial aid in October, but I didn't receive all of it. I'm waiting to receive the other portion of it. I had to buy my son diapers and food, and I had some bills to pay to my parents, because my parents need the money more than my Uncle Joe does. They are well set on money.
That's not your business. How well healed they are has nothing to do with you. They are not responsible for you. They are not responsible for your mistakes. They are not responsible for your clothes. The fact that they choose to keep advancing money to you is their error. But you can't make a judgment. Who are you to say that they have enough money, I don't have to pay them back? That if you want to pursue the matter of a loan, you pursue it with your sister. I don't think that you continue to give this young lady money up until a couple of months ago, understanding the circumstances of her life. That is, she has a child. She has a child that she cannot care for, who's being cared for by your sister. She's going to have another one with yet another father. She's all over the place, and yet you continue to advance her money. And it is my belief that you advanced her money not with the expectation that she was going to pay you back, but with the expectation that if you were going to see any of this money, it was going to come from your sister, not from her. She doesn't have enough money to keep herself or her child in diapers or birth control. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She has either been unable or unwilling to even start making payments to us.
I told her I was staying the night at a friend's house, and a friend was supposed to stay the night at my place.
I can't trust her, and I can't believe her.
So her mom called over to where I was supposed to be at and found out we weren't there. We went to a party.
Basically, she's going to do her own thing.
And so then after that, that's kind of how it all ended.
Yes, case number 242. On the calendar, in the matter of Hale, Stevens versus Gutierrez. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Mr. Stevens, Ms. Gutierrez and you used to be an item. You were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you are currently attached to Miss Hale.
I'm currently seeing Miss Hale. That is correct.
According to the complaint that I have, the two of you say that Ms. Gutierrez did not accept the breakup well, and she has embarked upon a course of conduct that is harassment. She's vandalized your property. She's repeatedly written notes, spray painted your car, spray painted your house, and you want her to stop this harassment. You have a series of police reports, 7 or 8 of them, over a period of several months. You want $4,000 in damages. Ms. Gutierrez says there is no way that she's responsible for any of the damage that you claim. As a matter of fact, she can prove that to me because she was hospitalized and she had just undergone some major surgery at a time when you claim she was running around spray painting your house. And she is counterclaiming because she says because of your complaints about her to the police, she lost her job. How long were you and Ms. Gutierrez together?
Approximately 26 months.
Did you live together?
No, ma'am.
And when did you stop seeing each other?
We formally broke it off December of 2003. While she was in hospital in January and February, I visited her. It was a life-threatening surgery. During that time, I was very explicit that I didn't want to maintain a relationship as a boyfriend-girlfriend.
You mean right after her surgery?
Correct.
That was in 04, January and February of 04.
Yes.
Okay.
The last time I actually spoke to her about the relationship was probably the earliest part of June.
Well, between January and February and the early part of June, were you together? Did you see each other?
We went on a camping trip in May as friends.
How do you go on a camping trip
Well,
with
we were
somebody?
going to try the experience.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you go with somebody on a camping trip in May that you're told you don't want a relationship with several months before, and then tell me you went as friends?
The reason was I don't believe that that's usually a healthy thing, but I thought that she would be mature about it.
Being mature about what?
To be able to be a friend after you've been in a deep relationship with someone, and to handle it as friends.
So you decided to handle it as friends by going away on a camping trip together. Now, let me ask you about this camping trip. How many people went on the camping trip?
It was just the two of us.
And did you have one tent or two?
We had one tent.
And did you share that tent, or did you sleep on the sofa?
No, we shared the tent.
Were you intimate during the course of this camping trip?
No, ma'am, we were not.
Is that true?
That's correct. It's kind of hard to do anything in a tent.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So what happened during this trip in May?
Well, we talked about a lot of things. I told her she still had feelings for me and voiced that to me, and I told her that I didn't want to continue, that I wanted to start seeing other people, and I encouraged her to do the same.
How long was this camping trip?
It was just a weekend.
When did you have this conversation with her, on Friday or Sunday?
In regard to?
Not wanting to have a relationship with her anymore.
Well, it had been sort of ongoing. I can't recall it like a specific time.
Your Honor, we never talked about it. We went out and had a good time. The following weekend was Memorial Weekend. I spent the entire holiday weekend with them.
That sound right, sir?
I only recall the camping trip.
Well, let's try to recall the following weekend. She said she spent the entire weekend with you.
I know that what I do...
She's going to be able to prove everything that she says. I want you to trust me, so I want you to think hard. We're not talking about so long ago, sir. You went camping. She says the following weekend was Memorial Weekend, and you spent the entire weekend with him. Is that right? Where?
At his home.
At his home?
Yes.
Not in your home?
Friday through Monday.
You didn't have a tent there where it was difficult?
We slept in the same bed, Your Honor.
Think hard.
I am, Your Honor. I do not recall that. I'm being completely, brutally honest with you,
Okay,
Your Honor.
well, if you don't recall it, she does.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, so what happened at the end of that Memorial Day weekend, Ms. Gutierrez?
We just had a good weekend. We made a nice steak dinner that night. Always ate underneath his hut. He's got a beautiful yard.
Well, when did he tell you that it was over?
We never talked about it.
How did you find out it was over?
On June 2nd, he was supposed to go with me to a Japanese dinner with a friend of mine, and he backed out. After dinner, I went to the club looking for him.
What club?
It's the Texas Tux.
Is that where he works?
That's where he picks up his women.
Did you find them?
No, ma'am.
When did you speak to him, if at all, for him to tell you that it was over?
A week and a half after he met Annette on June 5th. He was seeing her, but I didn't know anything about it until a week and a half later.
Miss Hale, when did you meet Mr. Stevens?
June 12th.
6/12.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you meet him?
I met him at the Tux with some friends.
At the Texas Tux?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were immediately attracted to him?
We got along well. Great conversation. Over the next few weeks, we would meet for a drink or dinner or, and that was it.
Did he tell you that he had been in a long-term relationship?
Sure did.
What did he tell you about it?
He had been broke up with her since December 14th.
Okay, that's what he told you? Mm-hmm. That he had been out of the relationship for at least 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you now know that that's not true.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know that before today?
No, ma'am.
We're getting on with this because I want you to hear this, Miss Hale. Before you put all your eggs in his basket, I want you to understand what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Bad enough that one lady got snookered. We don't want that to happen twice.
Mm-hmm. And he will.
Shh.
Sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. John Stevens and his girlfriend Annette Hale claim John's ex-girlfriend Janie Gutierrez has been spray painting obscenities on Annette's car.
Now, Mr. Stevens, Miss Hale tells me that you told her that you were in a long-term relationship which terminated in December.
That's when it formally terminated. That's when we had a
That's not what you
argument.
told me 2 minutes ago, sir.
No, but I'm just saying, what happened, that was the formal end of the romantic relationship. I did have a continued relationship, but it was not a romantic one with Miss Gutierrez.
Well, maybe you weren't romantic, sir. Did you tell Miss Hale that you had been on a camping trip with her?
I told Miss Hale about a lot of...
Did you tell her you had been on a camping trip with her 2 weeks before?
I don't recall if I told her about the camping
Well,
trip.
let's see. Did he tell you about the camping trip?
Yes, ma'am, but I was not aware they were alone. I was aware that there were a lot of people.
Oh, well, tell me about what he told you about the camping trip.
I thought they had gone with friends on a camping trip and that it was strictly friendly and that was it. And she couldn't accept that, and so he told her they couldn't be friends. That's what I was told. Yes.
There isn't a question in my mind, Miss Hale, that on Memorial Day weekend, they spent the weekend together. Because she remembers it down to what they had for dinner, and he just doesn't remember. Exactly. Just doesn't remember that. Could have happened, but he doesn't remember it.
Right.
Okay. Now, Miss Hale, I'd like you to tell me what kind of vandalism you suffered and when.
Okay. The first one started on June 25th. I have police report.
Can I see it, please?
Pictures.
Was there a word written here? I can't tell what it says.
It starts, but it just never gets to that last letter.
Okay. Well, this happened June 25th. What proof do you have that Miss Gutierrez caused this damage to your car?
Well, I have 2 other police reports. The painting happened 2 other times to my car. I have pictures of it also. And the fact that on July 31st, we were trying to wait up and watch for her since it was becoming every week. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the dog started going crazy, and she was out in the driveway with a can of spray paint.
But, Your Honor, she neglected to tell you that I got a prank joke from the police officer at 3:30 in the morning. They said that they had a witness for me spray painting the garage in her car, and they told me if I didn't come to the scene and bring my spray paint to the scene, if I had any spray paint, to bring it, otherwise they would arrest me. He made the prank call. So I came up there with the can of spray paint that was never used at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Did you call her?
No, ma'am.
That doesn't sound right to me, Miss Gutierrez.
It is, Judge Judy. They woke me up at 3:30 in the
Where did you
morning.
get a can of spray paint?
I bought 3 cans 6 years ago. It took 2 cans to spray one of my piece of furniture.
What color?
It was a burgundy.
Ms. Gutierrez.
But the third paint can I never used. I used both of them on the piece of furniture 6 years ago.
What color was the...
The third time was burgundy.
Can I see it?
And the same night, 25 miles away, she painted his garage burgundy. And we have pictures.
Oh, yeah. Some pictures of my garage.
The gold paint was the second time. That was the third with the burgundy on his garage.
What date was this?
That one was July the 16th, with the burgundy paint.
Now, Ms. Gutierrez, according to your answer, you say that it was impossible for you to have done this on the 16th of July because you had either just had surgery or you were recuperating from major surgery. What kind of surgery?
I broke my neck in January. I was paralyzed.
Until when?
I just got the machine off the back of my neck last week, and also my PICC line that I've had since January.
Well, that didn't prevent you from getting around in July. You were not bedridden in July.
I was on a machine, and I had home care come 3 times a week.
That doesn't make any sense. You're not
work and
answering
back
my
home.
question. Were you mobile during the month of July?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, because at some point in July, you went over to the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, right?
When I got the phone call.
When you got the phone call, you were able to get up out of your house and go over to his house with a can of spray paint. So you were, in fact, mobile. So there was nothing physiologically wrong with you that precluded you from getting into a car and traveling, unless somebody drove you there. Did somebody drive you there?
No, ma'am.
You drove yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Gutierrez, I would have been very angry with him, too.
But not enough for me to spray paint, Your Honor. I'm not violent.
That's not being violent. Not violent. It's being vindictive. It's a criminal act. It's not per se a violent act. But I don't see why you would want to spray paint her car. She got snookered in by this guy.
I have nothing against her, Your Honor.
Of course not. You shouldn't. The only thing that you both suffer from is from terrible judgment. You understand that the lady standing next to you has certain questions to ask you about what kind of character you have after today.
Well, ma'am, I'm an Eagle Scout, and I've tried to be as forthright and honest with her about a lot of these issues.
He never was honest with me. I found that out just recently.
He's an Eagle Scout.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect.
They're going to take your badges away from you, Mr. Stevens. How much did it cost you to clean up your car?
Well, we kept using different methods to get the paint off, but I've got estimates. It's practically down to the metal because 3 times getting paint off, it takes it away. So I've got 2 estimates and an estimate from Hertz on renting a car while it's getting fixed.
Did you get the paint off your garage door, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I used some chemicals, but it's left it down to taking the top coating off.
So I think you ought to get a can of paint. And while you're painting, I think you should keep repeating to yourself, I cannot tell a lie, I will always tell the truth. I am an Eagle Scout. See what kind of trouble you cause when you're not honest with people?
Ma'am, I've tried to be honest throughout this ordeal.
No. Let me explain something to you, Mr. Stevens. If you told this lady back in January and February that you were no longer interested in a relationship with her, and she could not accept that, that would have been her problem. But if you were waffing around until you found something better and took her away on a camping trip, and then the following weekend either shared her bed or allowed her to share yours with a view towards perhaps I have nothing better to do this weekend, that means that what you are doing is you are playing fast and loose with somebody else's emotions. And that, sir, is very cruel. And then when you meet this lady, you give her a whole bunch of junk, painting a picture to her that is not accurate, because I'm sure that when she was suffering this damage to her car, you were telling her, I don't know what's wrong with her. I broke up with her in December. That's 7 months ago. She just can't accept it. She didn't know that you were leading her on over the course of the next 6 or 7 months, up until a couple of months before this happened. She didn't know that. That's not being honest, sir. And sometimes damage comes from not being honest. So I suggest you go out there and get yourself a can of paint, put on some jeans, and paint your garage doors. You get $1,400 to paint your car. Judgment for the plaintiff, and your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You will step out.
Obviously, there was a relationship that broke apart and someone couldn't let go.
It destroyed me because my plans were to marry him.
I don't think I got the whole truth from either one of them.
Sort of painted me today like I was very untruthful and not upfront and honest.
He lied not only to me, but his new girlfriend.
I feel like I'm a victim in this.
My advice to her is she needs to check out someone's history thoroughly before jumping in bed with them.
I shouldn't have to live in fear where someone's going to come by, destroy my property, and come over at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hope this is the end of it.
I'm seeking advice from fellow fathers who have experienced infidelity in their marriages. Recently, I found out that my wife, whom I'll refer to as Deidre, cheated on me, and it has had a devastating impact on my family. I'm a 31-year-old male and my wife is 27. We have 2 children, a 4-year-old daughter named Sammy and a 2-year-old son named Timmy. The cheating happened in the past few weeks, but before that, I firmly believe my wife was faithful. Actually, I'm certain she was. We got married nearly 6 years ago and our anniversary is coming up next Saturday, June 26th. Unless something miraculous occurs, this will be our last year together. Pains me to say it, but that's where my thoughts are right now. I won't go into specifics about my profession, but let's just say I have a good job. My wife and I met during her final semester of college, and we got married 13 months later. She followed me to the East Coast, where I worked for 4 years and where our children were born. Earlier this year, I received a job promotion that allowed me to manage one of our offices located within 15 minutes of our hometowns. Both Deidre and I were thrilled to move back home, especially after having kids, and our parents were overjoyed. My parents, as well as her mother, still reside in the area, and my younger brother is here too. Unfortunately, Deidre's father passed away before I met her. Our families were naturally excited about having both of us back home, but they were particularly enthusiastic about being able to spend more time with their grandchildren. Everything fell into place nicely. My parents had recently relocated to a new home in a 55-plus community and intended to keep our family home while renting it out for additional income. Our family home is a historic gem sitting gracefully on over 3 acres of land, featuring a small creek meandering through the wooded lot at the back of the property. Instead of purchasing a new house, Deidre and I made the decision to move into the family home and pay rent to my mom and dad. They wanted to ensure that this cherished property stayed within the family for generations to come, and they hoped my brother and I would continue this tradition. Even though my parents and brother weren't keen on receiving rent money, I insisted on it, especially since my dad had recently retired and was depending on the rental income. In a way, paying them rent felt like paying ourselves, since my parents planned to pass everything down to my little brother and me. Now, let me emphasize that this household holds immense sentimental value to my family. Over the years, my parents have taken impeccable care of it, but there were a few necessary repairs after we moved in. Given its historical nature, the house boasts unique fixtures and features that require specialized attention. For the past 35 years, my parents had been collaborating with a local contracting company that specializes in working on older homes and has performed the majority of the significant repair work on our house. They do an outstanding job with older properties. After compiling a list of projects, I contacted them and obtained a cost estimate. The owner visited the house and walked around with me to discuss the work needed. If you examine the online reviews for this establishment, you'll notice that they have an impressive 82% 5-star rating and 16% 4-star rating out of nearly 700 reviews. Most companies of this nature are fortunate to average in the 3-star range in their reviews, so this speaks volumes about the quality of this business. A couple of weeks after receiving the cost estimate, the company initiated the repair work. They proceeded with efficiency and consistently ensured the project area was cleaned up at the end of each day. My wife and I were genuinely satisfied with their work and their professionalism. The majority of the work was performed by 3 of their skilled craftsmen, with 1 individual, whom I'll refer to as Brock for this post, handling most of the projects in our home. Brock was a personable and courteous guy who happened to be around my age. My daughter affectionately dubbed Brock as the window man because she would see him through our 2nd-story windows while he was working on a ladder. All the repairs were completed on schedule, and we were now comfortably settled into our home. My wife and children were thrilled with the place and I was content with my new job. Everything was proceeding smoothly until I had a casual conversation with my daughter exactly 2 weeks ago today. My wife had gone shopping with Mom, and my mom and I were looking after the kids. We were playing outside and my daughter was energetically running around until she hopped onto my lap when she got tired. We were engaged in light conversation when, out of the blue, she looked at me and said, "I saw Mommy napping with the window man." Before we delve further into this, I want to emphasize that my daughter is exceptionally gifted. I understand that all parents tend to feel that way about their children, but in her case, it's an undeniable fact. Her exceptional gifts are evident to everyone who meets her, including her doctors who formally recognized her talents. We even had her undergo testing before we relocated, and she achieved one of the highest scores ever recorded for a 4-year-old at the clinic. So when she told me what she did, I couldn't help but take it seriously. Though there was a slim chance she might have fabricated this due to her vivid imagination, I was inclined to believe her. I was utterly shocked and requested her to repeat what she had just said. She reiterated the same statement. I asked her to describe what had happened and how she had witnessed it. According to her, my wife had put Timmy and her down for their afternoon nap. Sammy explained that Timmy had dropped his pacifier behind his bed and was crying for her to retrieve it. She tried but couldn't reach it, so she went in search of her mom. When I inquired if she had called for Mommy, she replied in the negative. Instead, she mentioned that she walked over to our bedroom door and opened it, calling out for her mother. I probed further and asked her what she had seen. She recounted how Mommy had hurriedly gotten out of bed, wrapping herself in a blanket. She kissed Sammy and then led her by the hand to retrieve the pacifier and tuck them back in. I then asked where she had seen the window man, and she replied that he was lying on Daddy's side of the bed. Hearing this was incredibly painful, but I concealed my emotions and simply said, "Where was he?" She confirmed my question with a yes. Intrigued, I pressed for details and asked her to recount what happened next. According to Sammy, Mommy left their bedroom and she overheard her talking with the window man before they ventured outside. Curiosity piqued. I inquired about her actions following this conversation. Sammy explained that she got out of bed, peeked out the window, and witnessed him driving his truck down the driveway. I responded with a heartfelt kiss and expressed gratitude for her honesty. However, what Sammy shared next hit me hard. She revealed that Mommy had whispered to her, saying, "Shoot, let's keep this our secret." Okay. Naturally, I asked how she responded to Mommy's request, and Sammy said, "I told Mommy." Okay. Despite her tender age, my perceptive daughter seemed to sense that what she had witnessed was not quite right. Wanting to shield her from distress, I downplayed the situation, telling her, "Thank you so much for telling me. I'm so proud of you. Now, this can be our secret, okay?" Sammy agreed, saying, "Okay, I won't tell Mommy I told you." Then she added, "Daddy, don't tell Mommy I told you." I reassured her, saying, "There's no way. This is our secret." To lighten the mood, I tickled her and we both started laughing, shifting our conversation to another topic. It was evident that the secret my wife had asked her to keep was deeply troubling our daughter, and sharing it with me seemed to bring her a sense of relief. Later, my wife returned home accompanied by our mothers. She beckoned me inside while our moms headed to the back porch to watch over Sammy and Timmy. Once inside, my wife presented me with a gift she had purchased for Sammy. It was a birthday present that Sammy had picked out, even though her birthday wasn't until October. I inquired about the timing and my wife explained that she wanted to give it to her now. It was quite unexpected because Sammy hadn't inquired about this gift, and she wasn't anticipating it until her birthday. Moreover, my wife and I had established a clear understanding with Sammy regarding when she received significant gifts only on her birthday and Christmas. Sammy had wholeheartedly accepted this arrangement, and as I mentioned earlier, she hadn't mentioned the gift again since selecting it a couple of months ago. My wife rationalized her purchase by saying she's such a great kid and has been so good lately. I want to reward her. I hope you're not mad. I assured her that I wasn't upset, but I couldn't help but sense that this was a form of a bribe to persuade Sammy to keep my wife's secret. When my wife presented the gift to Sammy, Sammy expressed concern, saying I wasn't supposed to get this until my birthday. "What am I going to get then?" Deidre responded by telling Sammy, You've been such a good girl. Mommy and Daddy want to give this to you now. To everyone's surprise, Sammy countered with, no, I want to keep it until my birthday. I don't want it now. My wife continued to coax her into opening the gift, but Sammy resisted and looked to me for support. I spoke up and suggested, let's take this upstairs and put it in your closet. My wife was taken aback by Sammy's response, but I wasn't surprised. As I mentioned earlier, Sammy is quite intelligent and she genuinely preferred not to receive the gift until her birthday. We took the gift upstairs to her closet and Sammy appeared relieved that she didn't have to open it right away. After returning downstairs with Sammy, my dad and brother had arrived, and we spent the remainder of the day enjoying family time and sharing a meal. I went through the motions and had fun with my family, but my thoughts were consumed by what Sammy had disclosed. Later that night, I had intended to confront my wife but opted against it. I figured if Sammy's words were accurate, my wife would deny them. Instead, I informed my wife that I needed to get up early on Sunday morning to work on my company tasks using our home computer. She agreed and even offered to keep me company, but I declined her offer. When I woke up, I thoroughly checked our home computer but found nothing. Next, I accessed her phone using her password, but once again, I found nothing. I pondered whether Sammy might have fabricated the whole story, but her descriptions were too detailed to dismiss. The rest of the day, we spent at my parents' place visiting with my aunt and uncle who had come in from out of town. It had been over 2 years since I last saw them, so it was a pleasant reunion and an opportunity for them to meet Timmy, whom they hadn't met before. The day went well and Deidre displayed her usual affection, showing no signs of anything amiss. Back at work on Monday, I couldn't shake the thought of what Sammy had revealed. Multiple times during the day, I drove by our home to ease my suspicions. I did the same on Tuesday and repeated it on Wednesday. Still, I found nothing concrete, but a strong feeling persisted that Sammy might be telling the truth. I contemplated hiring a private investigator but ultimately decided to purchase a camera system at Best Buy. I set up the camera system while Deidre and Sammy were away at an evening event held at our local nature center. I was at home looking after Timmy. I strategically positioned one camera outside near the garage overlooking the driveway. The second camera was placed in the living room and the third found its spot in our master bedroom. I ensured that each camera was discreetly located, not easily noticeable unless someone specifically looked for them. I did have some concerns, though, about the camera in our bedroom. Despite it being mounted on the crown molding and blending in seamlessly with its white and black trim, it could potentially be spotted if someone were lying on their back and gazing directly at it. I made it a routine to activate the system before leaving for work each day and deactivate it before returning home. Since my wife and kids typically didn't spend much daytime hours in the living room, bedroom, or driveway, the cameras didn't trigger frequently. Whenever the cameras did detect motion, I received a text alert. Everything appeared normal until the following Tuesday at 1:46 p.m. when I received an alert from the driveway camera. Upon checking, I observed a truck from the contracting company approaching our driveway. Shortly after, I received another alert from the living room camera revealing my wife kissing Brock. My worst fears were confirmed. Sammy's account was accurate. In response, I hastily headed towards my home, simultaneously calling my mom to inform her of the situation and requesting her presence at my house as soon as possible. I asked my mom to bring my brother, aunt, and uncle with her. While they were on their way, I had conversations with them over the phone. By that time, I had received an alert from the bedroom camera and had a pretty good idea of what was unfolding in there. Despite being deeply upset, I managed to keep my composure and provided instructions to my family members. I specifically told my mom and aunt to take the children outside when I confronted Deidre. I also requested my uncle and brother to join me in the bedroom during the confrontation. I explained that I wanted them as witnesses and to prevent me from resorting to violence. They readily agreed. We parked on the driveway a bit away from the house, effectively blocking Brock's truck, and then proceeded to the front door as a group. Luckily, the door was unlocked, so we entered the house without any issues. Our bedroom is situated at the back of the house, which meant that the cheaters had no chance of seeing or hearing us approaching. I led the way with my brother and uncle right behind me, and my mom and aunt following them. The The noise coming from the bedroom masked any sounds we might have made while walking up the stairs and down the hallway toward the bedroom. At this point, my heart was pounding in my chest. I signaled for my mom and aunt to continue past us to the kids' room. Then I turned to my uncle and brother and asked if they were prepared. They both nodded affirmatively. With their agreement, I opened the bedroom door and entered. My wife let out a scream, exclaiming, "Oh no! Oh my God!" Brock hastily dismounted from the bed, fell backward onto the floor, and began apologizing while reaching for his clothes. I had my phone ready and began recording, saying nothing, just standing there silently while moving my phone camera back and forth. Brock continued to apologize and started getting dressed while my wife had the sheets pulled up to her face, crying and saying this wasn't supposed to happen. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Dave. I love you so much. I'm so sorry." After a few minutes, Brock was fully dressed and sat on the floor, covering his face with his hands, still apologizing. My wife, meanwhile, kept crying and saying sorry. I instructed Brock to leave immediately, and he quickly complied. Before he departed, I warned him, "Don't even think about taking your truck. We have it blocked, and I'll be calling the company to come and pick it up." Next, I called my mother-in-law, Amael, and explained what had just occurred, asking her to come over and pick up her daughter. My wife remained in bed under the covers, pleading with me not to make her leave, but I paid no attention to her. My Amael arrived shortly after that, and when she did, my uncle, brother, and I exited the bedroom. I could hear my Amael raising her voice while my wife sobbed. To my surprise, my wife left the house without any further incident. She hurried out with her head down, crying, and didn't say a word. It seemed like she was in a complete state of shock and deeply embarrassed. My Amael apologized to me, gave me a heartfelt hug and kiss, and expressed her love for me. After they left, I went out to the backyard to spend time with my kids and then contacted the contracting company. After I explained the purpose of my call, they connected me to the owner's cell phone. He expressed his apologies sincerely and assured me that his company would do everything in their power to make amends. I expressed my gratitude and ended the call. Approximately an hour later, the company arrived with someone to retrieve the truck. Brock was nowhere to be seen. The following Monday, I took a day off from work to meet with a lawyer and initiate divorce proceedings. I also retained an attorney from the same firm to address the matter with the contracting company. While I have respect for the owner and his company, I believe there should be some compensation for the harm their employee caused my family. Since the day everything came to light, I haven't exchanged a single word with my wife. She has been incessantly calling and texting, apologizing, pleading for forgiveness, and asking for a second chance. However, that's not happening, at least not at this point. Against my attorney's advice, I arranged for my wife's belongings to be moved out, with my brother and one of his friends transporting them to her mother's house. Currently, I've established a routine where my wife and her mom arrive at my house at 6:30 a.m. Her mother enters while my wife waits in the car until I depart for the office. After my workday, I go out for dinner at a restaurant and return home around 6:30 p.m. My wife and her mother have dinner with the kids before I come back home. When I'm approximately 5 minutes away from the house, I call my mother-in-law to inform her. Subsequently, my wife heads to the car while her mother remains inside the house with the kids. Upon arrival, I disregard my wife who was seated in the car and head straight into the house. Typically, I engage in a brief conversation with my mother-in-law to recap the day before her departure. I then spend the next 12 hours with my children, and this routine repeats 7 days a week. I acknowledge that this approach may seem excessive to some, but I want no involvement with my wife. If it were possible, I would prevent her from ever seeing my kids again, although I recognize that's not feasible. I harbor intense anger over what she did to me. The fact that she had a stranger in our bed while our children were in the adjacent room, then urged our daughter to lie on her behalf. This is an unforgivable transgression in my eyes. I've directed my lawyer to pursue full custody, although she contends that it's unlikely. There is a chance we might secure joint 50-50 custody with my home designated as the primary residence for the children. This is the current status of the situation. Now my question is, Have any of you successfully raised your children after a divorce without ever speaking another word to your ex-wife? As part of the divorce settlement, my attorney will propose that all communication occurs through a court-approved email application, and my wife is not to verbally communicate with me unless it concerns an emergency involving our children. As you can imagine, I hold strong negative feelings toward my wife and have no concern for her well-being after the divorce. While she is the mother of my children, I still remain indifferent. My family advises me to let go of my hatred and anger towards my soon-to-be ex, STBX, because it's detrimental to both me and my kids. However, I find it impossible to do so. I understand that they have my best interests at heart, but unless you've walked in my shoes, you can't truly comprehend what I'm going through. I'm eager to read your responses and intend to reply to as many people as possible, although my responses might be delayed. Mentally, I'm in a much better place now than I was back in June, thanks to my kids and my wonderful family, particularly my mom, dad, and brother. My children are also doing well. Timmy is too young to grasp the changes, and Sammy hasn't really noticed that her mom and I are not together in the same place, as she sees her mom every day at our house from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. I've been having dinner at my parents' home, and then the three of us go to my house to relieve my mother-in-law and wife of their responsibilities. The kids enjoy it because they have company all day. Now, as for my STBX, she's struggling. She's still under the impression that she can win me back and keeps coming up with offerings, thinking they will persuade me. The latest suggestion she came up with is that I could have a one-sided open relationship with as many partners as I wanted while she remains faithful and signs a postnuptial agreement with these conditions. Really? That's not me. I'm not like her. I'm the type of man who values a monogamous relationship, and that's what I'll be seeking in my next relationship, although it won't be happening anytime soon. She's currently seeing a therapist 3 times a week, and she has convinced her mom that she experienced a temporary bout of insanity for a couple of weeks, which is why she cheated. Frankly, I find this explanation completely implausible. She knew exactly what she was doing. I've since learned that claiming temporary insanity is a tactic some women use to rationalize their infidelity. I'm not buying into it, and I still haven't spoken a word to her. My mother-in-law is taking this situation pretty hard. She's a kind-hearted woman who loves me, her grandkids, and my parents. She's asked me several times if there's any way I could forgive and reconcile with her daughter. She expressed how genuinely sorry she is and how much she loves me. I care deeply for my mother-in-law, but I haven't engaged in a lengthy discussion with her. Instead, I've simply told her that forgiveness and reconciliation are not possibilities for me regarding my wife's remorse. I do believe she is sorry, but it's more about feeling sorry for herself and regretting that she got caught. In her distorted perspective, she may have thought that having an affair with Brock was acceptable as long as it didn't negatively impact our relationship. She audaciously sent me an email explaining how even during the affair, she gave me 100% of herself, including 100% of her body. Frankly, I find this message quite irritating. Alright, that's enough about my STBX. It's making me angry just talking about her. The divorce should be finalized in a few months, and when it is, I'll come back here to update everyone. By popular request, I've returned to provide an update on my situation. I'm pleased to announce that I am finally divorced from Deidre. However, the process was much more challenging than I had anticipated, filled with drama that postponed the finalization until March. As I last addressed, I remained focused on expediting the divorce process, while Deidre became increasingly desperate. She attempted to talk to me daily, but I insisted on communicating only through email and solely regarding our children. Whenever she brought up our relationship, I reiterated that our marriage was over and we would only have a co-parenting relationship moving forward. In September, my mother-in-law informed me that Deidre had been discussing thoughts of ending her life, stating that if she couldn't have me, she didn't want to live. My mother-in-law asked if I could talk to her, and I initially resisted. Eventually, I agreed to meet with her in the presence of my mother and my mother-in-law. During the meeting, Deidre expressed her remorse and outlined everything she was willing to do for me if I would just give her another chance. She repeatedly asked me to give her just 6 months to prove herself. I allowed her to express herself until she had said everything she wanted to. Once she was done, I made it clear that I no longer saw her as a romantic partner and had no interest in any form of reconciliation, even if it were for just a single day. Following this conversation, her mother told me that she sank into deep depression and rarely left the house. In fact, my mother-in-law began coming over at 6:30 a.m. when I left for work. She would dress the kids, prepare their breakfast, and then take them back to her house to be with Deidre. She mentioned that Deidre seemed distant from them, spending most of the day in her room crying and longing for me. My daughter noticed this and asked me why Mommy was crying all the time. This deeply upset her, as well as my son Timmy, although he's young enough not to notice as much. I explained to Sammy that Mommy and I are living in separate houses now. I told her that she, Timmy, and I are staying in our house and Mommy is living with Grammy. After clarifying this, she was okay. Her primary concern was moving to Grammy's house too. She loves her Grammy and her mom, of course, but I believe she loves me more. She was worried about leaving our house, her room, and the creek where she enjoys playing. I assured her that would never happen. After hearing that, she felt better. However, the drama with Deidre didn't end there. As the date of our final divorce hearing approached, Deidre's desperation grew, and she began calling and texting me repeatedly while I was at work. She kept listing all the things she would do for me and how I would be incredibly happy if I stayed with her, making promises and assurances I'm summarizing, but you get the idea. Then, the day before the hearing, I received a call from my mother-in-law, who informed me that Deidre had been rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. They suspected she was having a heart attack, so she was admitted and various tests were conducted. In the end, they determined that her condition was severe dehydration. Her mom told me that she hadn't eaten anything for the past 3 days, although she claimed to have been drinking water. It turned out she hadn't been drinking enough, leading to severe dehydration. I believe she did this intentionally to postpone the final divorce hearing. Unfortunately, her scheme worked and the hearing was rescheduled until after the new year and then delayed again due to bad weather. Finally, in early March, the hearing took place and I was granted a divorce, which I was immensely relieved about. All things considered, I believe I came out quite well. We reside in an at-fault state and I had video evidence of Deidre's infidelity. Surprisingly, the videos weren't even necessary as Deidre and her attorney provided a comprehensive written confession to the judge regarding the division of assets. I ended up retaining nearly 63% because the judge allowed me to keep everything I brought into the marriage, thank goodness. Nonetheless, Deidre ended up receiving $71,000 from me along with child support. Though there's no alimony involved, as I mentioned, I still think I got a pretty good deal, but the thought of paying child support to her doesn't sit right with me. We share custody equally, with my home being the primary residence for our kids. I'm covering my 50% and in addition, I'm paying her 50%. Does this seem fair? Shouldn't she contribute as well? It feels like the court system is heavily biased against fathers. So that's where things stand today. We maintain the same arrangement from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. every day, which works well, especially for the kids since they get to spend time with both parents daily. I've even re-established communication with my ex, but strictly about our children. If she inquires about my well-being, I gently redirect the conversation to focus on the kids. A recent issue has arisen in the past couple of days, which I plan to address promptly. As I mentioned in one of my previous posts, my wife and mother-in-law come over in the morning and stay until I return at 6:30 p.m. However, for the last 3 days, only my wife has been present at 6:30 p.m., not my mother-in-law. When I get home, my wife lingers and attempts to engage in conversations with me while interacting with the kids. Yesterday, little Timmy became upset when his mom left because he wanted her to stay. Predictably, my wife exploited this situation, seeking sympathy from me. Nevertheless, I remained resolute and comforted Timmy, assuring him that he would see Mommy again the next morning, and he calmed down. Tomorrow, I plan to have a discussion with Deidre about this matter, and stress the importance of keeping our handoff conversations brief and focused. End of story. This story feels like a biography of my life. The D-Day or the day I discovered some shocking truth was about 1.5 years ago. While many of you might say that having daughters is the best thing in the world, it wasn't the case for me. My first daughter was quite a handful to the point where she pushed me to the brink. She was like the first falling domino that brought my whole family down, and don't even get me started on my wife. I dreaded the day when my first daughter was born. However, my second daughter is an angel, a complete opposite of her sister. Let me give you some background about me. I'm 45 years old, and my wife is 42. I'm just an average guy living in the Midwest, working for a delivery service. My wife, on the other hand, owns a local business. I earn enough to avoid living paycheck to paycheck, but I wouldn't call it comfortable making around $85K a year. My wife, depending on the number of clients she gets, brings in about $55K, $70K, but she doesn't contribute to the bills, only groceries. Most major expenses fall on my shoulders. She has her own business, an event cleaning and catering service, so she caters for events and then cleans up the facility afterward. She employs a couple of people, and she often gets contracts for office building cleaning as well. Our house is fully paid for, so technically we should be living comfortably, but if not for my wife's shopping habits and my youngest daughter's boarding school fees, we would probably be more at ease. I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. My 21-year-old daughter is the one who has caused me so much distress. Even back in middle school, my wife and I had to keep a close eye on her because trouble always seemed to find her. She was frequently getting in trouble at school. When she was just 13, we received a call from the principal because she had been in a fight at school. She had hurt another girl, and I had to shell out $5,000 out of my own pocket to cover her and the other girl's medical expenses, mainly because she had initiated the fight. The reason she got into a fight with the girl was that she claimed the girl stole her boyfriend. I didn't even realize that 13-year-olds could have boyfriends. I was the youngest of 5 brothers and was primarily raised by my dad and brothers. My mom passed away during childbirth, so I've always had a more traditional blue-collar and hardworking approach to life. Going to college was an option, but in our area, most people worked for a big company called Caterpillar. My dad dedicated 55 years to that company, and all my brothers worked there too. However, things changed during the Clinton administration when trade deals sent our jobs to China and many companies moved to other regions or overseas to avoid unions. I was part of the union, and at 25 years old, I was making a good living, nearly $100,000 a year. I got married and even paid for a house with cash. Unfortunately, I was laid off, and while I found another job in the delivery business, it didn't pay as well as the union job. In hindsight, I should have taken the opportunity to attend college and earn a degree, which might have allowed me to move to another part of the country. Most jobs in this area have disappeared, and it's becoming something of a welfare state with less desirable neighbors moving in. I waited too long, and I felt like I missed my chance. Moreover, I didn't have any role models who had gone to college because I didn't know anyone in that situation. I essentially married the first girl I felt close to, but in hindsight, it wasn't a wise choice as my wife had previous partners before me. Moreover, I didn't thoroughly investigate her background and history. If I had, I might have recognized the source of my daughter's wild behavior earlier, as they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Additionally, it's worth noting that I had very little experience with women. My wife is the only woman I've ever been with, and she, along with my daughters, are the only women I've been close to. I remember when my eldest daughter was 14, her mother and I were called to the school by the principal to pick her up. She had gotten into trouble again. I worked 12-hour shifts 5 days a week, so I couldn't leave work until 4 p.m., and then it took me until 4:30 p.m. to reach the school, making me late. My wife was already there. Our daughter had been detained by the school police for being caught smoking with some boys at school. We discovered she had been sneaking around, associating with kids who sold it at her school. My response was to ground her and take her cell phone away for a month. I stopped her allowance for 3 months. However, this didn't resolve the issue because the school contacted us again, this time for the 3rd time. My mind was blown away. I was devastated and embarrassed by what she did. The principal didn't even know how to explain it to me. Was so embarrassed herself my daughter was caught giving BJ to multiple male students in the bathroom for money. I really didn't know what to do at that point. I really lost it. I totally went blank at the principal's office after. I heard the principal say that she gave BJ to other boys. Norm, I didn't hear the rest of what she said. I couldn't even bring myself to look at my daughter in my eyes. Her innocence was forever lost. Who knows? What else she might have done to repugnant image of her. Actions plagued my thoughts. I grew up in an environment dominated by males, and my instinctive reaction was to discipline her harshly. I might have gone too far. I didn't punch her, but I did slap her. Repeatedly out of frustration. Once we got home, her mother intervened to shield her, resulting in a heated an argument concluded with both of them leaving to stay with a relative for 2 days. Looking back, I now understand that I should have handled things differently. Still, I shouldn't be too harsh on myself because I believe that any father might have reacted similarly. I conducted a self-examination to see if I played a role in my daughter's troublesome behavior. We raised her with love and affection, and I look back on my own behavior while growing up. I was not rebellious, never got into trouble, didn't drink, use pills, or engage in misconduct. I was always willing to help around the house even without being asked. I was fortunate to grow up in a loving and happy home with my single father and brothers. However, I failed to thoroughly investigate my wife's background to comprehend where my daughter might have inherited this wayward behavior. In the end, I allowed my daughter and wife back into the house. We established some ground rules at that point, but unfortunately it was too late as news of the incident had already spread. Other students became aware of what had happened. Apparently she had engaged in such activities with 9 boys in the bathroom. The word got around through kids' conversations, and some even captured parts of it on camera, which then circulated throughout the school. The story reached some parents as well. The school authorities wanted to prevent this story from becoming headline news because it would be a major embarrassment for them. As a result, she wasn't suspended or faced any official consequences. To avoid further publicity, the school did make efforts to suppress and suspend any students who shared the video, and they were somewhat successful in their attempts. It was an incredibly tough situation for me. As a result of the incident, I became known as the dad of the girl involved in inappropriate activities in bathroom stalls. You can imagine how embarrassing it was and frustrating that was for me, the quiet and friendly neighbor, the hardworking delivery guy who suddenly had a daughter linked to such actions. It's important to note that my youngest daughter witnessed all of this during that time. My wife and I were convinced that we couldn't afford to let our youngest daughter be influenced by her older sister or the environment. You see, teenage girls are very impressionable, especially when it comes to their older siblings. That period, I believed that I needed to earn more money in order to send my youngest daughter away. I put in extra hours at work to bridge the gap with the goal of sending her to a Catholic boarding school in another state. Looking back, it was the best investment I've ever made in my life. Sending my oldest daughter, however, wasn't financially feasible. I believed that my oldest daughter was beyond redemption at the time, and we simply didn't have the funds to send her to the same school. Who could blame me at the time? In my rigid mindset, I thought you couldn't get any worse than giving a BJ to 9 classmates at 15. What could be worse than that? I thought. Little did I know that she was just getting started. When I was growing up, I was always mindful of the consequences of my actions. Before I did anything, I would carefully consider its impact, how it would affect others, and what others would feel about it. This thoughtful approach was an inherent part of my upbringing. It wasn't something I was taught. It was simply who I am, a part of my nature. On the other hand, my wife tends to be more spontaneous. She often speaks without thinking, reacts impulsively, and later regrets her actions, much like my daughter. As a result, her impulsive behavior has strained relationships and led to many conflicts. It has also put me in the position of being a peacemaker. I can recall several instances where we ended up in arguments that we really had no business getting into. She's the reason why I stopped going to baseball games with her or attending family outings with a large group of people. I distinctly remember one incident at a baseball game where she attempted to cut in line ahead of another couple. I had to remind her that we should follow the same rules as everyone else and that we weren't special. In short, my wife didn't heed my advice. She attempted to bypass a couple, and things escalated into a shoving match when the husband of the woman pushed her. I had to step in to defend my wife's honor, even though I had warned her about it. We ended up in a public brawl, which was highly unusual for me. To put it briefly, it turned into a chaotic scuffle with punches thrown and bottles broken. The police had to intervene, but fortunately I avoided arrest because I was acquainted with many of the officers in that town. I had volunteered for the fire department, and some of them were my former schoolmates. This incident occurred when I was in my 30s, but similar events had happened from time to time. Keep in mind that my daughters witnessed all of this. The strange part is that she only behaves this way when I'm with her. I believe she wouldn't have engaged in a fight with that couple if she knew I wasn't present. But every time she knows I'm there, she seems to find a way to embarrass me or put me in a situation where I might get into trouble. Consequently, I try to limit our participation in public events to avoid potential embarrassment. All of this didn't happen suddenly. She has always been like this. But I thought she would change back when I knew her in her late teens and early 20s. She would engage in such behavior, and I found it exciting because I hadn't experienced someone that wild before. We would do daring things in public and engage in all sorts of mischief. It was thrilling initially, but it grew tiresome quickly, especially as I was becoming a father and we were building a family. I tried to do the right thing thinking it was a phase she would outgrow, but these patterns have continued to this day. Additionally, I've had several instances where she accused me of checking out other women and thinking about cheating just because I happened to glance in the direction of a cute girl. This often led to heated arguments between us. I work a 12-hour day and I barely have time to cheat even if I wanted to, but she keeps accusing me of infidelity. Later, I discovered she accused me of cheating to divert my attention from her. There's a saying that when you point a finger at someone, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. Let me tell you about her compulsive shopping habit. Everyone has their vices like overreading or using substances. Hers is shopping. She constantly seeks validation even at her age. She's quite superficial, going to great lengths to avoid gaining weight and compulsively buying new outfits to boost her self-esteem. Having a brand new outfit is an obsession for her, so she shops nearly every day. Strangely, she doesn't contribute her earnings to our bills, and I don't even see her paycheck until the end of the year. If she shared the financial burden, we could afford to send both our daughters to a boarding school and lead a more comfortable life. After my daughter's fiasco, I should have been more vigilant, but kids at school teased her so much that she started skipping classes. She would pretend to go to school, but instead hung out with the wrong crowd smoking MJ. I assumed everything was fine since my wife wasn't contributing. I was working longer hours and had to pay for my second daughter's private boarding school by myself. I expected my wife to ensure our oldest daughter went to school and maintain good attendance. About a year later, 2 things happened. I never received any news from her school, and my daughter and her mom became incredibly close, almost like best friends. Initially, I found their relationship unhealthy, but as I hadn't heard any serious complaints from my oldest daughter's school, I assumed my wife had things under control and my daughter was heading in the right direction. When my daughter was 17, I came home early one afternoon feeling unwell. I noticed a tall, skinny young guy standing on my lawn, probably in his early 20s at the time. He claimed to be a friend of my daughter, dropping her off to pick up something and waiting for her return to give her a ride. I assured him she'd be fine and I'd take her myself. My wife's work at Counterline van was in the driveway, so she was home. I had a bad feeling about the situation. As the guy drove away, I took note of his license plate and other details just in case something went wrong in my house, like a robbery, or if he was involved in some nefarious activity while my wife was in the house. After he left, I hurried back into the house. As I rushed in, my daughter was rushing out, appearing in a hurry. I asked her who the guy was, and she said he was her friend. I mentioned that he didn't look like a high schooler, and she said he had already graduated. I inquired why she was hanging out with someone not from her school, and I followed that with asking why she wasn't in school. By now pointing out that her class should be in session, she claimed her class was canceled, but I had a feeling she was lying. I had thought she had improved in the 2 years since I last heard from her school, but seeing this behavior made me realize it had gotten worse and I had been kept in the dark. I was beginning to think that she wasn't just skipping school and lying about it, but also hanging out with a guy who looked like a dealer. It was the proof I needed that my daughter was now off the rails. My wife's van was in the driveway, so I thought she might have some answers given their close relationship. I thought maybe she could explain these shenanigans. I entered the house, but my wife wasn't there. I called her name and heard some noises coming from the basement. I went down to the basement and my wife was heading out. The first thing I noticed was the smell of NJ on her breath, and it was emanating from the basement. I asked her why I was home and explained that I was feeling sick. I asked if she knew that our daughter had been dropped off by a strange guy and was lying about her canceled class. I thought it might come as a shock to her if she didn't know about the man, but she was surprisingly dismissive. She claimed the guy was our daughter's friend and that they had come to pick up something. Couldn't believe it. I told her I never wanted to see that man again and to instruct our daughter not to hang out with him anymore. Feeling unwell, I cut the argument short, though I still had many questions. I told my daughter that her mom would drop her off at school and then went to bed to rest. Later that day, I fell asleep and woke up in the middle of the night, still troubled by the earlier incident. It was the foremost thing on my mind upon waking up. Feeling a bit better and thinking more clearly, everything seemed to click into place. I saw a guy who looked like he might deal an MJ on my front lawn, and there was the unmistakable smell of MJ in the basement where my wife had spent a lot of time. She must have noticed it too. Additionally, I couldn't ignore how close my daughter and her mom had become. From this deductive reasoning, I concluded that my wife might be involved in this. Perhaps she was smoking with my daughter and that guy might be their supplier. Even though my wife isn't a smoker, she always tries to fit in with the younger crowd and act like the cool mom. She's quite immature, and I wouldn't put it past her to engage in this kind of behavior. Like many things she does, she seems to disregard the consequences of her actions. At this point, suspecting that my wife might be smoking with my daughter or at least covering up for her, I completely lost faith in her ability to be a role model for my daughter. So I decided to schedule an appointment with the school principal to inquire about my daughter's attendance and performance without my wife's knowledge. That morning before heading to work, I called the principal's office and arranged a meeting for noon. During the meeting, I discovered that my daughter rarely attended class, and they had been sending mail to my home about her attendance. She hadn't completed her core courses, which meant she wasn't on track to graduate on time because her grades were so poor. As you can imagine, my suspicions were confirmed. Now I was concerned about how my daughter was spending all her free time since she wasn't going to classes. I thought my daughter was reverting to her old habits. Maybe she's hanging out with boys like the one I saw on my lawn. The most pressing question now is how much her mom knew about this. If she knew and was covering for her, I might have no choice but to file for divorce because that would show a lack of control and sabotage to my efforts. Reflecting on the past, I feel partially responsible for all this. When companies were leaving the area and moving down south or to like Mexico and China, home prices dropped significantly. Many of my friends left the state, relocating to places like Florida, Texas, Arizona, and more. However, I chose to stay. I should have sold my house and left too. Instead, I stayed, and the value of my house declined by nearly 50%. The neighborhood isn't the same, and the quality of the schools has deteriorated over time. This region is experiencing a decline, and I feel like I fell victim to the boiling frog syndrome, too complacent to realize that I needed to move to a better area. I don't know if my daughter would have turned out differently, but I'm certain it would have been harder for her to find bad influences in a better school district. That evening, when I got home, I confronted my wife about our daughter's school attendance. She claimed she had no idea that our daughter had been skipping school. She said she hadn't heard from the school, and the school stopped sending letters, so she assumed everything was going well. I told her that I had noticed the smell of MJ when she was coming out of the basement yesterday. She insisted it was our daughter and said she had caught her smoking and drinking at one point. Our daughter promised to stop drinking. My wife mentioned that while she didn't like our daughter smoking, she didn't want to push her away, fearing that strictness would make her run away with some boys, and she didn't want to lose her. My wife is definitely more open-minded than I am because I don't believe she grasps that using MJ is a bad thing. I informed her that I would take action. I wasn't going to idly watch her squander her future under my roof, especially considering the many enthusiasts in our town, and I certainly don't want her to become one of them. I reached out to my friend at the sheriff's department and asked for his help in talking sense into my daughter. The following day, I took a day off from work and brought my daughter to the police station. My intention was for the sheriff to show her the potential consequences of her life if she doesn't change. It was meant to be a sort of scared straight scenario where he would introduce her to women in prison for various crimes. After the meeting with the sheriff, I expressed my gratitude, and he also inquired about the man who was selling it to her. I provided the man's name and his license plate, and the sheriff promised to take care of it. I thanked him, and we left. Little did I know, while we were meeting with the sheriff, my 17-year-old daughter had already been 2 months pregnant. My wife told me about it on the same day she found out. She explained that she had just discovered this because our daughter was displaying symptoms. My initial reaction was to suggest that she get an abortion, and I placed the blame on my wife, accusing her of acting more like a friend than a mother. I considered the situation a substantial embarrassment and wanted to resolve it as quickly as possible. However, my wife disagreed and wanted to keep the baby in my household. It's not a democracy, my word is final. I refused to accept the idea that my daughter's life would resemble those I've seen on TV. I couldn't persuade my wife to my viewpoint, and my relationship with my daughter was strained. I expressed my disappointment and how she had ruined her life raising my voice and using hurtful names. I thought she had listened, that she understood the seriousness of the situation. Unfortunately, she didn't, because the next day she had disappeared, taking most of her belongings with her, and she had run away from home. My wife pointed the finger at me for my heavy-handed approach. We were both under a lot of stress. I went to work and explained the whole situation to my supervisor to request some time off so I could search for my daughter. Fortunately, he was very understanding and granted me 2 weeks of unpaid leave. Over the course of 2 days, we scoured the area searching for my daughter in the MJ cellar, because at that time I assumed he was responsible for the pregnancy. Yet he was nowhere to be found, even at his known addresses. I even reached out to some of his family members and relatives in the area, and word had it that he might have recently fled to another state due to having outstanding warrants. On the 3rd day, my daughter reached out to my wife and let her know she was doing fine. She mentioned that she didn't want to talk to me because she was aware of how angry I was with her, and she suggested we stop searching for her. This was incredibly hard for me to accept. It felt like I had lost my daughter, and continuing to try to change her seemed futile. I decided it was best to focus on my work and put all my hopes on my other daughter, because she showed great promise. She excelled in school, had a similar disposition to mine, and ticked all the right boxes. Yet not a day went by without me thinking about my strange daughter. Fast forward 5 months and she had a baby girl. My wife and my younger daughter went to visit her in another state, but I couldn't bring myself to go. Upon their return, they described the dire living conditions my daughter and her current boyfriend were enduring. This guy wasn't just a loser, he was even failing as a seller. She sure knows how to pick them. 3 months before my daughter gave birth, she attempted to make amends with me, realizing that life as a runaway bride with a however. I simply ignored her. My wife returned from the visit with a letter from my daughter, and as I read it, she was apologizing. She had come to realize that what I had been telling her was the truth. In her letter, she expressed regret for not having me in her life due to her actions. She acknowledged that she tried her best to make me proud but kept getting into trouble. I later discovered that her boyfriend had been in and out of jail for pills-related charges, and he struggled to maintain a stable job or make a living. My wife had been sending them money to support their nomadic lifestyle, drifting from one motel to another with their newborn. During that Christmas, my daughter returned home with the baby for a visit, and we managed to reconcile. I accepted the baby, however, when she expressed the desire to stay home with the baby after Christmas, I was firm in not allowing it. At 19, she was legally an adult, and I wanted her to lead a separate life from mine. I found peace in the knowledge that she was no longer my responsibility. Additionally, I had no desire for that scumbag boyfriend to hang around my house regardless of grandkids. She was welcome to visit during the holidays, but I wouldn't support her financially. My wife had a different perspective on this matter. She wanted our daughter to stay home with us, cherished the child, and tried hard to persuade me. We had a major disagreement over this, and my wife gave me the silent treatment and refused intimacy for months. But I remained resolute. I wanted my daughter gone. She was no longer my problem. I urged her to move back to where she came from and stay there, but surprisingly she and her lowlife boyfriend moved back to town in February. As I predicted, he got arrested for some outstanding warrant and was sentenced to 7 months in prison. During his time in prison, my daughter and her baby began to visit my house frequently. It almost went unnoticed when they moved in. I also started to develop a fondness for the baby, as her presence seemed to bring joy to my wife and my daughter and livened up the household. My daughter began working for my wife along with her 2 other employees, and they were doing well. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Fast forward about 5 months, and I learned that he was released from prison early. I had a conversation with my daughter, making it clear that she could move out and stay with him because I didn't want to see him around my house. I was very explicit, hoping that both my wife and my daughter understood my stance. Well, for a while I didn't see him around, at least not when I wasn't at work. Then one evening, as we were about to go to bed, my wife informed me that he had contacted her asking if she could hire him. My wife had 3 employees at the time, including my daughter, and her business was growing. She believed we needed an extra hand. She mentioned that due to his criminal record he couldn't find a job elsewhere, and his probation officer required him to secure employment. She also mentioned that he was off pills as they regularly conducted pills tests on him, and he was trying to turn his life around. I responded to my wife acknowledging his efforts to change his life but insisting that he do it somewhere else away from my family. He had already caused enough damage to my daughter, and I didn't want him to inflict any more harm. That's where we left that conversation. About a week later, on my way back from work, I pulled into my driveway, and to my surprise saw him there. He was assisting my wife and daughter in unloading items from their Ecomoline van, which she used for work. He was helping them move things to the backyard shed and the basement. It turned out that my wife had been employing him as a helping hand for some time without my knowledge. I confronted him and demanded that he leave my property. My wife and daughter didn't utter a word, knowing how upset I was. That day, I almost considered kicking my daughter out of the house. She explained it wasn't her fault as she had told him to stay away. Instead, it was her mom who allowed him to help. Needless to say, the house wasn't very peaceful that night. During that evening, I threatened to kick my daughter out of the house if I ever saw him around my home again. My wife believed I was overreacting. I suggested to my daughter that she was making money now and could afford her own place. I even asked why she didn't move out with him. She responded that she was saving money and didn't want to live with him until he had a stable job. She mentioned that if my wife didn't hire him, he might resort to using pills again and could end up in prison facing severe consequences. Although I didn't say it aloud, I secretly thought that this might be a solution to get him out of the picture. I had a hunch that this guy might never turn his life around and would continue clinging to my family, so prison seemed like a fitting place for him. After that day, I didn't see him again for about 2 to 3 months. However, I started noticing the smell of MJ around my house, especially in the basement. I didn't want to confront my wife or daughter about it, fearing they might lie or hide it from me. Instead, I decided to take action and purchased a motion-activated security camera cleverly disguised as a wall clock, which I placed in the basement. This camera had 128 gigabit